everyone, and welcome back to a new video. I've just finished recording something that was a little bit emotional, and I don't know if you're ever going to see it, so we'll see how that goes. But today I'm going to talk about something a little different, and that is Sam and Nia and their new book. Sam and Nia were Christian family vloggers who used to be known for appearing wholesome while exploiting their children for views. However, over the years, people began to see more and more problems with them, and their views and subscribers began to drop. Nia was accused of faking a miscarriage at one point, and around the same time it came out that Sam had been cheating on Nia using the website Madison, which is also how convicted child predator Josh Duggar cheated on his wife. Obviously, this led to a lot of people not really trusting Sam and seeing that Sam and Nia maybe didn't have the strong, wholesome front that they thought they did. There's a little bit of confusion about how much became public when, and the timelines are a little bit confusing. We'll see one particular timeline given throughout this book that they wrote. Whether that's the true, honest, real one, who can say? But it's their view of what happened. Either way, whatever order it happened in, Sam and Nia have decided to turn betrayal and cheating into a money-making exercise, as not only did they appear in a Netflix documentary, Madison, Sex, Lies and Scandal, but they've also just released a book about the whole situation called Sam and Nia Live in Truth, Public Scandals, Secret Vows, Restored Hearts. Now, going into this, based on what little I knew about them, I genuinely didn't expect this book to be necessarily 100% truth, but I thought it would be an interesting look into their lives, and that nonetheless, and that we could learn something from it. Turns out, it is both a really dull book and a really, really infuriating one. I thoroughly dislike Sam after reading this book. He's irredeemable in my eyes. So let's just dive into it as we often do and get really in depth, as we always do. So the first thing I noticed was how, you know how some books have or TV shows have like a message or a disclaimer or something that's like, names were changed to protect the innocent, blah, blah, blah. Well, Sam and Nia immediately opened their book with a page of disclosures, including, most names have been changed to protect the identity of the guilty. So they're going in for the kill right from the off. You know, there is a strange amount in here of blaming the women that Sam cheated with. He keeps doing it repeatedly, how it wasn't really his fault, it was the women's fault. They tempted him with the damn women. And it kind of feels like that's what's happening here on the first page too. Frustrating. They then make the absolute choice to dedicate a book about Sam repeatedly cheating on Nia to their children. Now, if I was their kid, I wouldn't be happy with this, but thankfully I'm not. There's also a few bits in this that I hate, like when they say, we pray that the patience you showed us while writing this book will one day pay off for you as a future husband, father, and man of God. And what if your kid grows up to be none of those things, Next up is a thankfully very short foreword from a man called Bo Dorster, who seems to be their preacher. He's mentioned in the book a couple of times. I know very little about him or his views, but from the way he writes here, I am not a big fan of him, which is very petty of me, but I can be petty sometimes, it's allowed. He says things like, hey there, I'm Bo. I know we haven't officially met, but believe me when I tell you that you're in for an intense and unparalleled journey. The following story is packed full of some of the most extreme emotional experiences a person could ever face. This story features romance, devotion, fame, family, betrayal, heartbreak, forgiveness, unique adventures, persisting doubts, God's healing, and the power and pains of living in truth. It's crazy how a book can be filled with so much stuff and still be so boring. First up, the prologue is titled Netflix and is written by Sam. It includes things like, although I had no idea I'd get an opportunity to share our story on the world's largest paid streaming service, I always knew that one way or another I'd publicly confront the lies I'd told to millions of people after the Madison breach. Years before this email from Netflix, I had made a promise to myself. If I were to ever speak publicly about my leaked Madison account again, I would address the lies I told in my public response at the time and provide a fuller picture of my brokenness, Nia's forgiveness, and God's redemptive work in our individual lives and our marriage. After several subsequent interviews with me now With the Minnow Films team, they agreed that our story was too vast and too compelling to be condensed into snippets in a single episode. Your story will be the heartbeat of the series, Toby, the director, informed us. He shared that they had even excluded other stories that they were keen on telling to allocate more time to ours, telling us everything we needed to hear. Why does this feel like a humble brag? Like we're just better than the other couples because our story of infidelity is just so much more dramatic and complex. It's far more important than yours. That's not a good thing, you know. Part 1, Dawn of Deliverance, 1.5 years before full confession. The first chapter is almost entirely focused on how Sam just always wanted to be famous. So when their video of them literally doing nothing requiring any talent, lip syncing to Disney's Frozen song.
Okay, can I just say something crazy?
I love crazy.
Went viral. Sam finally thought, oh my god, screw all these patients in my care as a nurse. Let everyone watch me on TV. I'm gonna be famous. I felt a huge pull between my professional duties as a registered nurse and the realization that my long-forgotten dream of becoming famous was suddenly becoming a reality. I slipped into a vacant treatment room and slid the door and curtain closed behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed and let my thoughts swirl chaotically. Could this be my way out of nursing? I wondered. I have to tell Nia. Is my life going to be exciting after all? And you'll notice throughout this book, especially in the earlier parts, Sam is just very focused on fame and wanting to be famous. He doesn't really care what for. He just wants fame. This is also where the excuses start right away. Sam says that he never had a decent father figure, which is why he's just a political baby boy who needs fame. And remember this, because that's his excuse for why he cheated too. His dad. There I was, a 28-year-old nurse feeling like that same 17-year-old attention-hungry class clown again. Then, an impactful conversation I had with a youth pastor during that period resurfaced in my memory. Without a father figure to make you feel seen and heard, my youth pastor explained, you probably missed out on approval as a child, leading to a craving for external validation, something fame appears to promise. I'd admitted to him that it seemed I was constantly dreaming about being applauded by a large audience. He then goes on to talk about how he saw his dad cheat on his mum as a kid, and I get it, right? We're all products of our upbringing, and of course that has an impact on all of us, but you can't just keep passing off responsibility for cheating on your wife to your father. You need to take some personal responsibility as well. You can't just be like, well, he did it first, so it's his fault. I've become accustomed to his short temper and unpredictable flare-ups. My interest was piqued, however, when his gaze swept across the parking lot and I spotted a smile on his face, persisting even as he talked. He fiddled with the door of a coin return, then combed his fingers through his hair, letting out a big laugh. He was radiating with a giddiness I didn't recognise. I leaned over the steering wheel, and despite sensing he was talking to a woman who wasn't my mum, I found my smile mirroring his. Growing up, I'd seen Dad shoulder more burdens than joy, seemingly always stressed out. The weariness in his eyes had always hinted at dreams put off and quiet sacrifices made for the sake of our family. Witnessing this sliver of joy, this lightness in his demeanour while talking to someone who brought a genuine smile to his face, my childish heart couldn't help but feel happy for him. Then his dad takes his kids for breakfast at the house of the woman that he's cheating on their mum with, so they can all eat together. It's very messed up. And I get that that's going to have an impact on you, but it's still no excuse for cheating on your wife 20 years later, you know? Back to the viral video, and Sam says, Nia was fully aware of how my job as an ER nurse had worn on me and the depressive thoughts it led to. She was my biggest cheerleader, always willing to sacrifice anything at the drop of a hat if it meant I could pursue what I loved. Nia assumed that all my decisions were also made with our family's best interests in mind, believing I was and had always been just as devoted and sacrificial as she was. At that moment, it was indeed the truth, but as my deep-seated guilt would reveal, it hadn't always been the case. It kind of just sounds a bit selfish and self-absorbed, right? Like, the only good things he ever says about Nia are how much she does for him, how much she loves him, how great she is to him, and how hot she is. That's all. Never says anything about her as an individual. I don't actually know anything about, like, her personality or her interests or what she likes, because all of her stuff is just, I love him so much, I've always loved him. And all of his stuff is, she's always loved me so much. So who is she? We switched to Nia's chapter next, and just as Sam kept talking about himself, Nia only ever talks about Sam. It is ridiculous. 2 chapters in and I was already starting to greatly dislike Sam, and it only got worse as the book went on. By the end of the book, I was actually like, I think I hate him. I don't know him, I've never met him, but I think I actually hate him. He's that bad. So Nia writes, I enjoyed the sudden popularity, but more so I enjoyed watching Sam get recognition for something creative he'd put his heart into. Not to mention the very idea of him being recognised on the streets likely had him static inside. It's just all him, isn't it? And also, I'm sorry, but something creative he'd put his heart into. Are we talking about the same video? Are you delusional? Where is the creativity? Where is the hard work?
Love is an open door.
It's you lip syncing in a car. Not doing anything special. I do that around the kitchen with Kyra every day. Only difference is I don't stick it on YouTube. She talks about when they met back in high school and says, I was his #1 fan, soon to be groupie, and the girl he wrote all his love songs about. Sam had already made my dreams come true simply by making me feel like I belonged, adoring and loving me in a way no one ever had. And then of course there was him making me his wife and starting a family with me, making all my pretend play as a child and my teenage fantasies an amazing reality. I expected to really dislike Nia going into this book, but with a couple of exceptions of times when she annoyed me, mostly I just feel really sorry for her. I have a lot of sympathy for her. She is a victim of so much. Nia also tells us about her backstory, which is that her mum was a drug addict and her dad didn't want anything to do with her, so she was raised by her grandparents until the granddad cheated on the grandma. So it was just her and her grandma left. Her grandma is someone who she also calls mum occasionally, or Bebo. Why are there just so many crappy men in the world? And can we also normalise telling people that just because you've grown up around crappy men, that doesn't mean you need to keep crappy men in your life. That shouldn't be the norm. It's actually something I really explore in my first poetry book, Reflections on Healing. Do you see a baby right here? Let me just... Whoop. Shameless self-promotion. One of the big things I reflect on in here is how, growing up, seeing all these abusive and violent and angry men around me and in my family, it normalised it. And so when I ended up in an abusive relationship, I didn't realise that that wasn't normal. That's not just how men love. And that's one of the big things that I explore throughout that book and come to the realisation that I do deserve better. That isn't normal. Men shouldn't behave like that, you know? So to Nia, I say, despite what you've been through in the past, please raise your standards. You deserve better. Nia says of her grandmother, who, like I say, she's sometimes called Mum or Bebo, Mum, likely influenced by the circumstances of her daughter's death, as well as her husband's infidelity and the substance abuse that plagued our extended family, insisted on keeping me in private Christian schools until high school. She did all she could to shield me from the world, especially from boys. I'd often hear her stern warnings, even as a small child. Your granddad snuck off to see Ruth every chance he got, she'd say. You better save yourself for a real good man, Nia. The thought of someone cheating on me took root as a deep-seated fear in me. Talk about passing on your trauma to your kids, right? When Nia met Sam, she became entirely and immediately codependent on him, and she tries to pass this off as romance, even while calling it codependence. Every time we had to say goodbye, the lost girl who didn't know her place in the world would resurface, and I'd count down the minutes until I could see him again. The more time we spent with each other, the more intense our codependence came. When the first month of our relationship, we were each other's everything. The next chapter is still about that barely mediocre YouTube video of just Sam and Nia sat in a car, lip-syncing. I can't. To add some friendly one-upmanship, I began the title with good-looking parents, rounding it off with a half-truth. Sing Disney's Frozen Love is an Open Door. I'd admit it was clickbait since we didn't actually sing and only one of us was good looking, but considering the video would earn us the award for Best Video at the AMG Heritage Awards that year, I'd say it was more like click art. Who thinks like that? He really does think a lot of himself. I don't get how you can write a book like this and admit to the things he's done and still have this big of an ego. Men like him scare me a bit. The bond Nia and I developed, our shared creativity, and our determination while making the video meant more to me than a mere YouTube upload. The process brought us together, revealing things about our personalities that had attracted us to one another from the start. Personality traits that we had allowed the stresses of adulthood to push aside. You mouthed along to a song in a car! Where is the creativity? Where is the determination? At one point he says they would have frustrating practice. How? What is the practice for this nothing? I am so frustrated by people doing the bare minimum and acting like they're amazing and they deserve the world, and actually being rewarded for it. It's frustrating. He then tells a story of meeting Nia at school, and all he can say about her is that he thought she was hot and he liked hot girls. Not exactly award-winning romance here, is it? But I guess that's real life. He tries to convince us that it was love at first sight because, wait, did he mention that she was pretty? She was pretty, you know. Yeah, she was pretty, and that's why he fell in love with her at first sight, because she was pretty. So, first sight, love, because she was pretty. Did he mention he liked pretty girls? And she was pretty. It cuts back or forward in time to them posting the video, and Sam tells us that he said all sorts of totally loving and supportive things to Nia, like, "You look so gorgeous in our video, you look amazing." Anyone would think he had a one-track mind and only liked her for one reason, you know? In Nia's chapter, they tell a story about being asked to go on Ellen, but... plot twist. During our discussions with the producer at The Ellen Show, Sam and I candidly shared that we hope to reflect Jesus for anyone seeing our video. A family of his making, just enjoying life together. We figured that mentioning Jesus would likely ruin our opportunity to be on her show, so instead of skirting around our beliefs, we voiced them loud and clear. The producers ended up offering the spot to a woman who copied our idea, doing a lip sync to the same song in the front seat of her car with her daughter. She walked off the set with a $10,000 check. Sam and I called it a win. Sam and you sound jealous. I looked up this woman and her video, and I have to ask, did she really copy your idea? Or was this a woman just doing something basic and unoriginal but still cute with her kid? You don't have a monopoly on lip syncing. You don't have a monopoly on Disney songs. Stop pretending you made high art. This isn't someone repainting the Mona Lisa and passing it off as their own. You just both mouthed along to a Disney song.
I've been searching my whole life.
And also, do they realise they're acting jealous of a kid? Like a literal child. Nia says that they decided to start vlogging together so that 1, they could talk about God, and 2, because it would stop Sam being so angry all the time, and Nia would be able to, and I quote, stop walking on eggshells around him. That's healthy. As the responsibilities of adulthood grew in our lives, Sam's stress grew even faster. He gradually lost interest in his passions, such as photography, woodworking, and music making, as if part of himself was dying. Up until recently, beginning when we started a new church several months prior, he'd been withdrawn, keeping his deeper thoughts and feelings from me, and I found myself walking on eggshells around him. His genuine excitement that evening was a welcome sight. Again, I know she might have done some crappy stuff in her past, and we'll get to the whether or not she faked a miscarriage thing later, but I still feel really sorry for her. I really do feel sorry for her. Sham? Freudian slip there. Sam shows more concerning behaviour. Like, upon getting married and moving into a new home together, he says, "Our own house! We can finally do whatever we want." I giggled, I know, right? Like, we could do whatever we want. "I kind of want to break a window just because I can, you know?" Sam joked. That's not normal or funny. And why is his first response to anything violence? You see it a lot. It happens a lot. It says that after getting married, they finally decided to discuss what she calls ground rules. Interesting that it was after marriage and not before, but here we are, I guess. Hers included things like not wanting a TV in the bedroom. His was having a particular look in his eye. I braced for a romantic line to come out of his mouth. "Let's put a mirror on the ceiling instead," he said. As he freed me from his grip, I asked, "What other rules should we have?" "We definitely can't ever use the word divorce," he reminded me. Feels unhealthy, but okay. Also, it's almost, I don't want to say dangerous, but as we learn more about their history and like when the cheating started and things like that, and how honestly he's never been trustworthy. Spoiler, he was being inappropriate with other girls while they were still in high school, so this was before the wedding. It feels almost dangerous for the one who's doing all the cheating and betraying to be like, "We can never use the word divorce. You're never allowed to leave me." Do you know what I mean? The next chapter is just Sam bragging about how much money they made, and they made so much money. YouTube really did used to be a lot easier back in those days in like 2014, and I have to admit, I am quite jealous. I'm quite jealous. They made apparently like literally millions off these like short videos of them lip syncing, which like it was low effort content, not even that long, but they racked up the views. They made a crap ton of money. Nowadays, it's like I put out like a 6-hour video that I've just spent like 100 hours making, and it's like, good job, you made £2,000. You can pay your rent this month. Where are we? Okay, so the next chapter takes a drastic turn as Nia writes about how they had CPS called on them when they first started vlogging. But first, Nia needs to remind us that she got an expensive Tiffany necklace for Christmas, which is totally relevant to the whole CPS thing and worth spending several pages on, and it's not just her bragging about how much money they made, it's her just bragging about how much money they made. Finally, we get to the actual CPS bit, and the CPS agent says, "We've been informed by some of your online viewers of concerns that may be putting your child's safety at risk. I'm here as protocol to follow up on those concerns." "What?" I shouted, leaning forward and clutching the pendant of the necklace Sam had gifted me just a week earlier on Christmas Day. That's the only relevance of the necklace and the whole Tiffany bit. Nia was told what the reports about her kids were, which was mostly her kid being filmed eating paint, and that her house was generally unclean and dangerously messy, with things like overflowing bins full of nappies and stuff like that, and she just brushes it off as like, "Ugh, is that all? Your child was eating paint. That's enough." I soon regretted inviting this woman into our home. Caught up in the moment, I hadn't considered whether I had any other choice. While I've never been one to resort to physical violence, the urge to push her out of our house was almost too much to control. After Tenile, the CPS lady, completed her walkthrough of our house, she sat down beside me on the love seat in our living room. "May I ask your daughter a few questions?" she asked. I nodded, desperate for the ordeal to end as quickly as possible. She started asking some basic questions about herself. Sam walked in the door. Despite my request for him not to, he went straight for our camera and started filming. "Babe," Sam began, "we have to show the haters that not even this will come between our family." He pointed the camera directly at the CPS lady and said, "You're fine, Mum. Go ahead." And again I have to ask, what the hell? Sam, what the hell? Someone thinks your children are in literal danger and your response is, "Let me film this for content. This'll show the haters." The following 2 days were painfully slow. I couldn't stop replaying the questions she'd asked, overanalyzing our answers and wondering if they were the right ones. Sam's confidence that the visit would amount to nothing, dismissing it almost as if it were a joke, only made the wait more challenging for me. Can we please give Sam a Worst Husband Ever award, please? He needs it. After prayer and counsel, Tenile's visit ultimately contributed to my personal growth, making me a more resilient public figure. I began to understand that people weren't ridiculing me so much as they were trying to feel good about themselves. Now, this may be true in some cases, in the case of like some hate comments and troll comments and that sort of thing, but I think in the case of worrying about your kids, that doesn't make anyone doing the worrying feel good about themselves. I know when I've covered topics about kids before, like the whole Ruby Frankie situation and stuff, worrying about those poor kids and calling out the poor behaviour towards them does nothing for me but make me feel heartbroken and miserable and lose faith in humanity. I don't call that stuff out because it makes me feel good. It doesn't make me feel good. I do it for the sake of the kids and to educate people about like other warning signs and how to help other kids in need and so on. Nia learned absolutely nothing from this whole experience though. Perhaps I did let the diapers pile up more than necessary. I could also appreciate the viewers were raising concerns about the chipping paint on my child's bed that they were eating. This was an oversight on our part. Despite my initial response of wanting to share less online, I soon found myself wanting to share even more. So you learnt nothing. Part 2. Through the Wilderness, weeks before full confession. Alright, hi, sorry about that. I had to take a break for a couple of days to film. It's been... life is busy at the minute, I'm sorry. My cleaner came the other day, so the rest of the day was just filled with editing, and then more editing, and then more editing. And then yesterday there was the little agricultural show that I went to, which was really fun, and some of my art was on display, which was really nice. And then last night was just more maths revision over and over and over. So my exam's on Wednesday, and I'm quite... for this, I've mentioned it before, but I'm doing like a second degree, and my first module's first exam is this Wednesday, and I'm quite nervous. And yeah, it's going okay. My mark at the minute is I'm averaging 98%, which is great, but that's only worth 20% of the overall module mark. So I still need to do really well in this exam. And so far, my best mock exam has been in 93, and I feel like I can just do a bit better. So, yeah, this is Sunday I'm filming this on. I don't know when the video's going out, but I'm filming this on Sunday. My exam's on Wednesday, and somehow between that time, I have several more past papers I want to do. I've got to film this video, edit this video, put it out. I am not sleeping at the minute. So, let's let's do this. Right, where even were we in this book? Where did we get up to? Okay, chapter 7, that's where we were. So chapter 7 opens by saying how Sam and Nia decided they wanted to have a third child for views. Seriously. Again, I find myself asking, what the hell? Sam writes, a year had passed since our first viral video, and I felt we were overdue for another hit. Given the proven success of pregnancy announcements on YouTube, and Nia and me's decision to continue to grow our family, I felt the golden opportunity I was searching for was close at hand. My creativity was sparked. How can we shock the world with our next pregnancy, I wondered. I thoroughly dislike this book, and I thoroughly dislike this man. I know I'm a YouTuber, but I just don't relate to this, like, constantly chasing, like, a high and constantly chasing, like, this next big hit thing. And maybe this is where I'm going wrong, and this is maybe why my growth is slower than a lot of channels and stuff like that. But I don't want those big highs, and I don't necessarily want a lot of subscribers. I'm very happy with just, like, this nice little level of consistency. You know, I'm happy with plodding along. I'm happy with a slow and steady growth. I'm happy with not getting too big. I find that every time you get like a big video that does well and attracts like a lot of new viewers at once, it just comes with a lot of stress and drama, and I don't like that. So I guess I don't really relate to Sam and Nia's YouTube experience in that sense. I don't know. Anyway. Sam says, as an ER nurse, I administered numerous pregnancy tests, mostly for women requiring x-rays. While it's the doctor's responsibility to inform a patient of a positive test, I would rarely miss the opportunity to be present when a woman unexpectedly learned of her pregnancy. I'm pregnant? My patient questioned the doctor, her voice rising in disbelief. She'd come to the ER expecting to hear she had another UTI, a familiar diagnosis. The doctor confirmed it, and her mouth fell open as she turned to her mother sitting beside her. When the mother rose to her feet, her face absent of a smile, the doctor and I knew it was time to make our exit. Returning to my desk to document the dramatic interaction, inspiration struck. Just like I knew my patient was pregnant before she and her mother did, I excitedly pondered, could I somehow discover Nia's next pregnancy before she does? Why am I struggling to speak today? No matter how many times I read this passage, the thing that I can't get my head around is any of his thought process here. So he's like, I really like telling people that they're pregnant. For example, here's a story where a woman was devastated to find out she was pregnant with a baby she didn't want and didn't plan. Therefore, this inspired me to make a YouTube channel about our pregnancy announcement. Does he not realise that that story he put in the middle of there about a woman finding out she was pregnant, not being happy about it, not it having been planned, like, and her mother clearly being devastated. Does he not realise that that's not a happy story? That is most people's worst nightmare? That I don't know what to think of this. He confuses me. I googled to check the originality of my idea and was beside myself to learn I was onto something groundbreaking. It had never been done before. Too excited to keep it to myself, I ran the idea by an ER doctor. He thought it was an interesting idea but commented, that is, if you don't mind stealing your wife's God-given right. Apparently, Sam didn't mind that. Later that night, I set aside a plastic urine hat used for collecting urine from patients with the plan of discreetly placing it under the toilet seat at home to secretly obtain a sample from Nia. This is insane. After realising she'd likely notice the difference in sound of urine hitting water and urine hitting plastic, I cancelled the idea. Plan B was to tickle her until she wet herself, then wring out the specimen onto a pregnancy test. Probably not, I thought. As if I can film that circus and get her okay to post it online. There was a simple solution, I just knew it. Then, like a golden butterfly landing on the tip of my nose, the answer lit up my brain. Nia's habit of not flushing the toilet during the night was a running joke between us. She claimed it was to keep from waking everybody up, but I'd argue it was because she enjoyed seeing my reaction every morning to how much toilet paper she had wasted through the night. At last, that first morning sight of yellow water and TP has a silver lining. Sometimes I wish I didn't know how to read. This is also probably a good time to say that I thankfully did not pay for this book. It was free with Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't have to waste my hard-earned money on that first morning sight of yellow water and other nonsense that's in this book. Actually, if you guys ever wonder where I get a lot of the books from that I review on this channel, like the bad books that you wouldn't want to pay money for, the answer is often things like Kindle Unlimited or libraries Or some libraries even have like online ebook services where you can borrow the ebook and give it back and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a great source of getting access to a lot of books and a lot of information without ever having to pay directly for it. It's useful to know. That evening, after a brief nap, I sprang into action. As Nia prepared dinner, I turned off the water supply to our toilet and drained the bowl and tank. I then placed moulding clay, yes, moulding clay, in the back of the toilet drain to keep the urine specimen from going down when it came time for her to supply it. "Hey, cutie," I said as we were getting ready for bed, biting my lip to keep from laughing. "The toilet's not working right now. It's okay if you pee in it, but please, no number twos." Now I really regret being able to read. The test comes back negative though, and Sam deletes the video footage that he took of her toilet pee. And I'm now just realising on reading this, he put clay in his toilet bowl to block it up. That means to get it out, he had to put his hand in a whole bunch of her pee. 2 weeks later, I don't think I love anyone enough that I would stick my hand in a bowl full of their pee. Also, here's another question that I'm thinking. If he's blocked up the toilet, so he's drained the bowl, he's blocked up the toilet. Actually, how do you even drain a toilet bowl? I don't know if that's possible. Surely, not the point. Anyway, where was I even going with this? Right. If he's blocked up the toilet, drained the bowl so it's completely empty, and she pees in it, and then she puts some loo roll in there, surely that loo roll is just going to soak up all the pee. She can't be peeing that much that there's still a reservoir of pee enough to put a pregnancy test in, surely. I am seeing many flaws in this. I understand why people think they faked this. So many flaws in the plan. Okay, 2 weeks later I repeated the process, getting yet another negative result. By the third try, I ditched the clay dam and wasn't even bothering to drain the toilet anymore. My enthusiasm for this idea was waning. 3 weeks later, while at work, ready to throw in the towel, Nia texted, "I'm late on my period." "You better not do a pregnancy test without me," I quickly texted back. It's now or never, I anxiously thought. I got home at 8 a.m. just as Nia was whisking eggs for breakfast. After kissing her and the kids, I announced, I can't have to read this, "Time to take the Browns to the Super Bowl," then beelined it to the bathroom. That's a poop reference. I don't find toilet humour funny. I peered into the toilet, spotting the golden liquid I was there to collect, along with half a roll of toilet paper, of course. Again, no, we didn't need to read any of these details, but also, again, how could she possibly have peed that much? That there's still plenty of liquid in there after half a roll of toilet paper. I know he's exaggerating, but even after a lot of loo roll, how is there still enough liquid in? I don't believe it. Although I was prepared for the test to eventually come back positive, my immediate reaction proved otherwise. I was so focused on executing my plan that the realisation that Nia and I could actually be expecting another child had completely slipped my mind. Great guy. My children had always been the greatest joys of my life. Yeah, had, until you found YouTube, apparently. Now they just take a back seat. Sometimes literally. At this point, before he actually does the pregnancy test, although we all know it's going to be positive, we get a flashback to their wedding day with Sam controlling everything as usual. Inspired by my favourite scene in the first movie of the trilogy Back to the Future, I'd chosen Earth Angel by the Penguins for the song Nia would walk down the aisle to. Nia had wanted Lucky by Jacob Mraz, but that morning, as we prepared for the day, I found myself pleading with her to walk down the aisle to this old favourite of mine instead. Did she get to pick anything about the wedding herself? This is the song she walks down the aisle to. Surely she should get to pick that. Wild. Anyway, he goes on more about how on the wedding day she was so beautiful and blah blah blah, and she's beautiful, and did you know she's beautiful, and she's also kind of hot, but did you know she's also beautiful? It is strange how that is the only compliment he ever gives her. He only ever talks about her looks, her beauty, how pretty she is, how hot she is, she's beautiful. Did you know she's a little cutie? But nothing about her personality. I wonder, what does he actually like about her? And I say that as a slight to him, not her. It was Nia, in a wedding dress, my bride, as if she'd teleported straight from the day I fell in love with her, her full beauty tantalizingly shrouded behind a thin wedding veil. Her eyes sparkled with innocence and, don't like that, and her smile, radiant and sincere, turned me back into the love-struck teenager who had been completely enamoured by the first sight of her 5 years earlier. Back to the pregnancy announcement, and as I walked from the bathroom to the kitchen, a realisation dawned on me. This pregnancy would likely be our last. Considering Nia's history with 2 prior C-sections, our doctor warned us that the risks of her 4th child were too great and that 3 pregnancies would be our max. This is kind of concerning to hear from a couple who now have 4 kids. I have questions. Sam says that blah blah blah, yeah, he was kinda happy to be having a new baby, he guesses, but the moment carried more weight than I could have ever imagined. Because better than a new baby, it gave him YouTube fame. No, seriously, that's what he means. He's like, yeah, I guess we're having a kid, that's fine, whatever, happened a few times before. But we went viral on YouTube, which had also happened a few times before, but it's way more exciting to him, apparently. I feel bad for his kids. Sam then recounts a memory from his childhood where, upon learning Sam was one of 6 kids, a random man said to his mum, "With such a big family, that increases the odds that one of y'all will be famous." He smiled and gave a sincere nod, his expression dead serious. It was an offhand comment, one I'd never heard or thought about, unrelated to anything that day, but it struck a chord with me. It lingered with me for many years, to the extent that by my sophomore year of high school, I was completely convinced that fame was in my future. I'm so sorry, my tummy's rumbling so much, I'm so hungry. I wrote in my journal, "Today I can barely hold back my smile as certain events happen today that indicate I'll for sure be famous." This is a book about him cheating on his wife repeatedly, and all he can talk about is, well, see, I always knew I'd be famous, and then I got famous, so isn't it great that I'm famous? Even famous for being scummy, maybe. He goes on to say, nearly 10 million people had viewed our pregnancy announcement. What started as a crazy idea and a willingness to meddle with my wife's urine morphed into a global celebration of sorts.
So here I am, and I'm so excited. I have a specimen. I knew it would be there. I don't know if it'll throw it off because it's all diluted, but I also brought home a pregnancy test. It's a pretty clear sample. Okay. 2 lines is pregnant. So far, nothing on the test. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh. She's really pregnant. Pull it out.
Oh my god.
Pull it out.
Oh gosh, you are so funny. Oh, you brought a positive one home. You're such a dork.
What? What? What?
You're hilarious.
No.
This is a joke. Those of you out there who are like, ah, they're pregnant. This is a joke.
Yeah, it is a joke. The joke's on you. The joke's on her, right, guys?
Told you.
What did you do?
Huh?
What did you do? Did you get a dropper out of the toilet? No, you didn't.
I did.
No way.
Before that day, however, just as we were grasping the enormity of our video's influence, celebrating the exciting moment with my mum, our lives took a shocking and heart-wrenching turn. And this is, sadly, why most people don't announce their pregnancies until after the 12-week scan, because that's when the chance of miscarriage reduces drastically. So this is hard because this next bit talks about miscarriage, so if you need to skip forward a bit, please do. But basically what happened is Nia thought she was pregnant. She just missed her period, so if she was like maybe 3-4 weeks pregnant, if that. And they did a test, it came back positive. They put the video online, and then just as the video started getting big, when she must have been maybe 5 or 6 weeks pregnant, she sadly had a miscarriage. Nia is the one who writes about this experience, and while it is important to cover difficult topics like talking about miscarriage with sensitivity and understanding of how difficult this can be for people, I can't help but find the way that Nia writes about it a little odd and jarring. So she writes, "After sitting on the toilet, I noticed a faint spot of blood in my underwear. That's strange, I thought. Attempting to brush it off as nothing to worry about, I exited the restroom and joined Sam and his mum on the couch, who were watching our pregnancy announcement video on the living room TV screen. How many views now? Sharon asked, thrilled about another grandchild and proud it was making the headlines. Almost 600,000, Sam said. Wow, she said. I told you you were special. I chuckled. It always bothered Sam when his mum bragged about him. Nia, I can't tell you how happy I am for you, she added. Are you excited? So Nia is potentially maybe miscarrying this baby, and all she can focus on writing about is how many views their video got and how proud Sam's mum is of him, and how many people keep telling Sam how great he is and how great Sam is because of his video. I feel so bad for her, because it's like her whole life has just been focused on him and his needs and his wants and his aspirations. She's always had to take a back seat. So even when this really difficult thing is happening to her, all she can think about is him, because that's all she's been conditioned to ever think about, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Viewers were beginning to accuse us of staging the video, claiming that it was impossible to get an accurate pregnancy result from a diluted urine sample. I couldn't help but respond to one of them. I guess you didn't watch until the end of the video, I wrote. I did a second test to confirm it. And from what I can tell, because obviously I wasn't there at the time, I wasn't watching these videos at the time, but from what I can tell from reading online, people weren't so much accusing them of faking the whole pregnancy at that point, but of faking the bit where Sam discovered it first, where he took the test first, you know? And I can see why people thought that and still think that to this day, because most pregnancy tests, especially earlier pregnancy tests, and they're more advanced now, but this was like, what, 10 years ago? Maybe a bit longer? So they were less advanced then, we just have to be honest, and less sensitive. But even to this day, most pregnancy tests recommend that you take them first thing in the morning, when the concentration of HCG is going to be highest in the urine. This early on in pregnancy is already going to be a fairly low amount in the urine anyway. And it was early in the morning-ish, but it was also diluted by the water in the toilet bowl, to the point where if there was a test done on toilet water, it would likely be very faint if it picked up anything at all. The other weird hole in their story is that Sam reckons Nia peed in the night, right? And then left the pee in the toilet because she didn't want to flush it and wake people. But then apparently she got up in the morning, didn't pee again or flush again. She got up with the kids. None of them used the bathroom or peed or flushed. And then Sam came home and went in and tested the urine. So at this point, you've likely got several people's pee in that bowl, diluted by water, diluted by other pee. None of them have thought to flush for God knows what reason. Piled high with loo roll, which at this point is probably going to be hard to flush if there's that much in it, and you're going to risk toilet blockages. And he's just going to be able to test, put a test in that. It seems very improbable. So while they're watching the video on the TV, also, is it not just weird to anyone else that they just enjoy sitting around watching their own vlogs back? Because they talk about that a lot in this book. They have this thing happened while we were watching our vlogs back on the TV. This happened while we were watching our vlog back on the TV. And it's like, not just like once to, watch it through after an edit or something like that. They just repeatedly watch their own vlogs for fun. It's interesting. Anyway, they're watching their vlog back on the TV with Sam's mum, and Nia says that she thinks she's having a miscarriage. So Sam's reaction is to pray, which I guess good for them. They're Christians, that helps them. That's nice of him to do. And then he immediately picks up a camera to vlog it. She thinks she's miscarrying, and he's like, quick, better vlog this. I don't have the words to express how insensitive that is, right? As our emotions slowed, Sam picked up our vlogging camera. "Hey guys, some sad news here," he said into the lens. "Nia just found out she's starting to spot a little bit, and she's having some cramping. We're pretty upset about it." "If no cramps were attached to it," I added, "it would be different, but it just feels weird. I've never felt this in pregnancy." We didn't have to say much else. Sam shut off the camera after one last message. "We'll keep you guys updated." That footage never made it into a vlog. And well, yeah, I'd hope not. The next few paragraphs feature a very graphic description of a miscarriage from Nia, which I'm not going to read out. It is pretty disturbing, and I do end up feeling really sorry for her. And then the chapter just ends with them worrying what the public will think of their miscarriage and if it'll stop them being successful, which is, again, an interesting way to respond to grief and the loss of a child you wanted, you know? The loss of a pregnancy you wanted. Okay, so part 3 is burned, not consumed, and this takes place days before full confession, except it's not full confession, is it? Let's be honest. You'll see when we get there. He doesn't actually tell the truth for maybe years after he starts to confess. He does what we call trickle truthing, which is something I'm going to keep mentioning. He when she finds out something, he gives her a little bit of the truth, but not the full story. And then she questions him more, and he gives her a little bit of the truth, but not the full story. And then a little bit, but not the full story. And then a little bit. And so he's never fully honest, and she keeps having to push for the truth and answers, and it's horrible. Anyway, yeah, okay, cool. 2 weeks prior, Nia and I announced our miscarriage to our YouTube audience in a video we titled, "Our Baby Had a Heartbeat." Immediately upon upload, we were met with an unpredictable negative response.
3 days after the original pregnancy announcement, and 2 days after the news was shared with their families, Sam and Nia would upload a video titled "Our Baby Had a Heartbeat," announcing that unfortunately Nia had already had a miscarriage.
It just hit us like a bomb. And those of you who have experienced miscarriage before, you know, I can relate now.
Within 2 days, the video had racked up 1.5 million views, and with a ratio of 14,500 likes to less than 1,000 dislikes, it's safe to say that everyone believed Sam and Nia's story.
Many viewers were skeptical about our miscarriage happening so soon after our remarkable pregnancy announcement. They accused us of fabricating both events, reinforcing earlier claims that testing diluted urine for the HCG hormone wasn't possible. According to these skeptics, to get out from under a fake pregnancy, we had no choice but to also fake a miscarriage. So when I mentioned at the start of this video that some people accuse me of faking a miscarriage, this is what I was referring to. And I don't want to pass too much judgment. I don't want to make any big claims because, like, I'm no expert and I wasn't there and I don't know the truth of it, but I would just hope that no one would actually fake a miscarriage. I don't like to believe anyone would be that horrible. Like, surely not, right? And the thing is, with how common early stage miscarriages are, I do think it's quite believable that this could have happened. I think they probably faked Sam doing the test. I genuinely believe that. But I don't think they faked the pregnancy or miscarriage. I think they were just naive and silly to make it all so public so early. But I don't think they'd be as horrible as to fake the whole thing. I don't know, I hope not. Anyway. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go and eat something because my tummy is rumbling a lot. And the last video I filmed where I was really hungry, someone left me this comment being like, "Oh my god, I can't concentrate anything with your dog grumbling in the background." And I remember. And Kyra wasn't even in the room. I've got my little office set up now, so the door's actually shut and she's not in here. And she's off sleeping somewhere in the rest of the house. It was just my tummy rumbling a lot because I get hungry and my tummy makes a lot of noise when I'm hungry. And people were like, "I can't concentrate on anything, you need to shut up." And I was like, "It's just my tummy. I'm sorry. Just doing it now. It's grumbling away." Alright, hi again. I ate some food. I had a nap. I'm back. I am struggling with quite a bit of hip pain at the minute. So if I seem down, if I am a little short of breath, it's the pain. If I'm a little bit grumpier than normal, it's the pain. I'm sorry. I did a lot of walking yesterday and I am paying for it now. For those of you who don't know, I just have a lot of... Actually, I don't know if I've really spoken about it too much in any video ever, but I have a lot of problems with my hips and hip pain. I was born with dislocated hips, and then the doctors never thought I'd walk, but then I started walking, which was great. But something to do with the way, like, the muscle connects to the joint or the bone or I don't quite understand the specifics of what's wrong, but basically something didn't grow properly or develop properly, and now I have to do, I did some physiotherapy, and I have these exercises I can do to help and stuff, but that's more like long-term help. I still get these flare-ups a few times a week, sometimes worse than others, where I just have whole days where I can't really walk or move without pain. And it's just a bit of a nightmare. And I'm kind of, I don't know, as you may have realised in my last video, I'm kind of at this point in my life now where I'm kind of done, where I'm just kind of done hiding my feelings on a lot of things. And one of the things I'm also done with is just pretending to be fine when I'm actually in a lot of pain. I look back at so many videos and I'm like, I was in pain there, I was in pain there, I was in pain there, and no one knows. And I'm just like, I'm kind of done with it. So I'm in a lot of pain, and I do have painkillers I can take for it, but it's always just ibuprofen and paracetamol, because I've tried cocodamol before. I had that when I was in hospital with the ruptured ovarian cyst and like when the ovary got twisted and stuff, but I didn't really like how cocodamol made me feel. So I just stick with like the the basic painkillers. And again, you have to be careful even like saying the word painkillers on YouTube, because people just run with things. I remember 4 or 5 years ago now, I think it was, I had my wisdom teeth coming through, and I got an infection down here, like in the gums, and before I took like proper antibiotics for it, the doctor just wanted me to try this. It was like an antiseptic mouthwash that had like slight numbing properties as well, and it was like all the words. Sorry, my brain just doesn't work when I'm like this. Basically, it's a prescription mouthwash, and the good thing is it helped. It cleared up the infection. That was all good. The bad thing was, once I'd first used it, it made my tongue a little bit numb for like the next hour. So I still had to work, because, you know, you still have to even when you're ill with this job. And I said in the video something like, oh, you know, I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit weird. I'm in a lot of pain right now. Plus, I just use this like numbing mouthwash and taking painkillers and stuff, meaning I'd taken some ibuprofen. And this one person decided to take that story and run with it and tell everyone online that I had a painkiller addiction and I need to go to rehab as soon as possible. And I was like, it's a prescription mouthwash. Yeah, anyway. So that's part of the reason I don't talk about like health issues online, because people just get the wrong end of the stick and run with it. The other story apparently is because I mentioned that one night that I had that falling out with Jimmy Snow, I'd had a drink, and I was a bit drunk when it was all going down after a big argument with Johnny. Apparently now there's at least one person who likes to go around online everywhere, and I've seen it on Reddit, I've seen it on other videos that mention me, and they tell everyone that I'm an alcoholic who blames my alcohol problems on everyone else and uses it as an excuse. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I was drunk one time. It's very odd. So, yeah, my point is I don't really like talking about personal stuff online, because even if it's just like, I can't walk today, people will take that and twist it to be like, see, she has a painkiller addiction. She's, I don't know, on God knows what drugs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not even taking ibuprofen today. I'm just in a lot of pain. So anyway, that's where we are with life. I guess actually it's surprisingly relevant we're talking about that based on where we were at in this book, with people like running with this thing with Sam and Nia and taking what was probably a really, really tragic thing for them. And then, because I still stand by it, I think they probably faked the whole him figuring out the pregnancy thing, or at least she played dumb about it and just let him do it. But I don't think they faked a miscarriage. I don't think they did that. I really don't. And I think, as much as I thoroughly dislike Sam, based on how he portrays himself in this book, because I didn't know them before this, all I have to judge them on is this book and some videos I've seen as a result of this book. And basically, I feel really sorry for Nia, and I really, really thoroughly dislike Sam. But even so, I do feel sorry for them, knowing that some people are probably going to be exaggerating some of the things they did, or just making up stories or things like that. I think that's true of most online content creators, and I do feel sorry for the people who have to go through it too. I don't know. For anyone wondering, it's a can of Monster in a glass shaped like a diamond. I'm not drinking whiskey. I'm not drunk. Non-alcoholic. See what I mean? Anyway, where were we? Let's get back to the book so I can stop being moody and grumpy. So this chapter is written by Sam, and the focus is mostly about them just doing an ABC interview about the whole pregnancy and miscarriage thing. And Sam says that he was lying to a lot of people, especially the public, around this time. He says, the ugly reality was, as I would prove in the coming days, that even as a Christian I was capable of, even willing to deceive our audience if it meant saving face. The ABC interview we gave that day was scheduled to air on Nightline a few days later. Ironically, just one day before, I would blatantly lie to our audience about an entirely different matter. The day after our ABC interview, Nia noted that I was particularly tense as we made our way to DFW Airport, bound for Seattle to attend a vlogger fair, a gathering of like-minded video creators. As if the miscarriage itself wasn't enough, the hate and doubt surrounding our videos drove another huge wedge between my excitement of going viral and our future as YouTubers. My hit video had dissolved into a muddled drama. Sam continues to make pretty tone-deaf statements like, as if our vulnerable YouTube uploads didn't give the crowds enough to jeer at. In bad judgment, but an innocent attempt to find meaning in our suffering, I tweeted, "Our tiny baby brought 10 million views to her video and 100,000 new people into our lives." Because of the tweet, we were then accused of openly bragging about the profit that the loss of our baby brought us. And as much as what I said earlier about me feeling sorry for them and people running with narratives and stuff, I agree with the commenters here. I think that was an incredibly inappropriate thing. It's just an odd thing to tweet about the loss of a pregnancy that you wanted, you know? I understand that everyone grieves differently, but I can't fathom being like that about, like, a kid you wanted. And that's coming from someone who doesn't even want kids, so will never be in that position. I don't know. Feels weird. He says, my controversial tweet unintentionally exposed an ugly truth about myself, a flaw of which I was already well aware. Views, likes, and subscriber counts have become deeply intertwined with who I'd become. And on the one hand, I want to commend him for recognising this and being able to say, like, hey, this is a problem I have, here it is. But on the other, recognising that you have an issue with something doesn't really mean much unless you're doing something to fix it. And Sam can recognise it's a problem, but one that he doesn't want to change or fix, and so he never makes any steps to fix it. And he's still fame hungry and will do anything for views and subscribers and all that sort of thing. And it continues right to the end of the book. And I don't know, it's just kind of a little frustrating to read and see. And then just when we thought Sam couldn't get any more unlikable, this is when he gets exposed, or got exposed, for cheating repeatedly on Nia. Despite the overwhelming situation, navigating miscarriage emotions, responding Christ-like to the news outlets and commenters about false rumours, dealing with unexpected criticism from those we thought had our backs, sympathising with a hurting wife, and stressing about the Nightline interview release, beneath it all, my biggest concern was something else entirely that was circulating the internet, something that had the potential of annihilating everything I had ever truly loved. And it's at this point we switch to Nia's perspective. She says, Sam was irritable and our exchange quickly got heated as we approached a highway bridge, the kind I'd always been terrified of driving over. Fear came over me. "Slow down, Sam," I demanded. Sam laughed as he explained he was going 10 miles per hour under the speed limit. I doubt that. And this is a weird point to bring up, but I doubt he was actually going under the speed limit, because sadly I've known men like Sam who drive dangerously when they're angry or anxious or whatever, and they'll say they're sticking to the rules, but they're not. They're breaking them. But that's not the only thing. Sam has a habit of him and his friends driving dangerously in this book. There are 3 different car accidents in this book, and a couple of others that are close shaves, and they all come from irresponsible driving, mostly driving while drunk, or driving while angry and anxious and things like that, or driving while arguing. And I have a bigger point to make about it at the end of the book, but I'll just say, doubt here, you know? The next chapter is back to Sam's perspective and is just titled Ashley Madison. He says, a hacker group known as the Impact Team issued a public ultimatum exactly 1 month prior, demanding that the extramarital dating site Ashley Madison shut down by that very day. If the site failed to comply, the hackers threatened to leak 60 gigabytes of confidential user data to the world. By the end of the day, Matthew would tell us that the hackers followed through on their threat. Matthew's his brother, by the way, who was following this news story eagle-eyed. The world was stunned by the sheer number of exposed adulterers. The account details of 37 million users, which includes names, addresses, sexual proclivities, and even private chats, were released to the public. So Matthew, like I say, was Sam's brother, and he didn't know that Sam was part of the site. He just saw this news story and was really intrigued by it, and was giving the family constant updates throughout the day, oh my god, this happened, oh my god, this happened, oh my god, this happened. Like my brother when he watches the Olympics, so much that I have to mute the family group chat. Sam's brother was doing this with the Ashley Madison leaks, which I find kind of funny. As prominent names emerged from the leak, dominating social media discussions and making headlines worldwide, I fueled more lively texts from Matthew. The poor wives, he wrote. I hope all these men get found out and there's genuine repentance. But these guys deserve exactly what they have coming. Samesies. I like Matthew here. Several family members responded to Mashley's. Oh my god. Several family members responded to Matthew's Ashley Madison commentary, agreeing with his sentiments and adding their own thoughts and disgust towards it. I, on the other hand, remained silent, dreading that my number one fan, Matthew, not to mention the rest of my family, seemed to be on the brink of a profound disappointment. The chances were growing that they'd soon discover a sister-in-law was among the poor wives that Matthew pitied. So I guess he's at least a little self-aware for a cheating bag of poop, right? That's something he has going for him. He's self-aware poop. It turns out that Sam, and he says this in this chapter, had made an Ashley Madison account just 2 years before, and he's about to tell us why. And it's this sub-story about how he's just a poor, sad little boy, and he couldn't help it. And, he was struggling so much because he didn't like having a proper job that he just had to try and cheat on his wife with plenty of forethought and effort because he's just a poor, ickle baby boy, right? I have no sympathy for him, sorry. The story begins with a fellow nurse scolding him for looking at pornography on the work computer. Sam says he didn't, but again, I have my doubts. I looked at the screen and saw it was filled with pop-up ads featuring explicit photos of women. 3 other staff members sat nearby, clearly anticipating what I had to say for myself. I pulled off my latex gloves and threw them on the desk. Do you really think I'm that stupid to pull up pornography on a work computer right here in the open? Michelin? Oh, that's a name. I loudly asked. A curious doctor peeked his head out of his office. I think he's stupid enough to do that, yeah. Michelin shrugged her shoulders. I don't know, Sam, she said as she walked away. The answer is no, Michelin, I said. I have everything a man could ever want waiting for me at home. And then he thinks to himself, why would I waste my money on such a stupid app? So Sam claims he wasn't looking at porn, he just signed up for an Ashley Madison account and paid for it, which is how the computer must have got a virus. And yet he's here saying he has everything a man could want at home, when clearly not, because he's planning on cheating on his wife. As I jabbed the start button on the pump harder than necessary, I acknowledged that I deserved no better than to be accused of looking at pornography at work. I've turned into the exact person I never wanted people to think I was. How did I get here? I whispered. I wasn't exaggerating when I told Michelin that I had everything a man could ever want. Yet there I was, jeopardizing it all on a site made for desperate adulterers. Michelin pinpointed me for exactly the kind of man I was. I'm going to say no, actually. I don't think she did. I think she gave you the benefit of the doubt, because looking at pornography at work is stupid, but not the same level of betrayal as paying money to try and cheat on your pregnant wife. You know? You're not the kind of man this woman thought you were. You're worse. He then goes on to say that it actually wasn't so bad what he did, because even though he paid for it and was looking to cheat and wanted to cheat, he didn't actually cheat. Not because he didn't want to, but because women just didn't message him. As I sank into my chair, I felt as empty as the inbox in my Ashley Madison app. The hard-hitting awareness of blatantly searching for an affair, mixed with the reality of being rejected by every woman the sleazy site attracted, along with the sudden realization that I was giving off the vibe of a scumbag husband, sickened me. A severe intestinal blockage like the one my patient had suddenly seemed like a vacation compared to the condition of simply being myself. And like I say, if you didn't think this could get any worse, this all happened while Nia was literally pregnant with their second kid. A pregnancy which we've already heard was super high risk and literally putting her life in danger. She is at home growing a human and risking her life, and he's paying money to try and cheat on her. Also notice here that he's like, oh, it didn't, like nothing happened. I didn't speak to anyone. And he's trickle-truthing the audience as well. So at first he says that he just signed up for the site and paid for it, but he didn't do anything. He didn't talk to anyone, no one wanted him, blah blah blah. But then later he says well, and then he claims that he deleted the app nearly straight away within hours. And then a bit later in the book he tells us, actually it was weeks. Actually he did speak to a few people. Actually blah blah blah. I don't trust a word he says. My guilt intensified even more when I thought about Nia soon giving birth to our second child, my first son, and how my actions risked my child being raised in a broken home. What the hell is wrong with him? Finally, a tweet exposes Sam as having been on Ashley Madison, and we get paragraphs of him just panicking, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. I have no sympathy for him. He says that during this time he was worried for Nia, not because he actually cared about hurting her feelings or the fact he'd betrayed her. Instead, he was just worried because she was the only person I had left on my side since the pregnancy and miscarriage rumours started. And now I was on the verge of losing her. A deep, painful sense of loneliness engulfed me. God had given me multiple chances to come clean to Nia about my struggles, but I treated them as mere suggestions. I was dead set on never telling Nia anything about my dark past, and now it seemed God was exposing me to everyone. So, he doesn't care that he's hurt her, he doesn't care that he betrayed her, he cares that now she might leave him and he'll be all alone like a poor little baba. Good, that's what he deserves. I know some people think that when I'm like this, I'm less kind than I normally am, and I'm not giving people the same benefit of the doubt that I used to and stuff like that, but I have to ask, how am I supposed to cheat? How am I supposed to treat a man cheating on his pregnant wife and just seeming to just not care about it to this degree until it affects him? I don't understand how I'm supposed to have any kind of empathy for a man like this who has shown no redeeming qualities in any way, but who continues to hurt his wife and children. I don't know what benefit of the doubt there is to give here. I don't know how to be like, yeah, but maybe. There's nothing. Everything he's doing is just horrible. And these actions and the way he's speaking about them and the way that he doesn't seem to have really learnt much by the end of the book just leaves me being like, well, where is the redemption? How can I be nice or understanding to a man like this? Sam then gives us a series of paragraphs, like a whole essay basically, about how he felt so guilty for trying to cheat that he couldn't sleep that night, so he decided to masturbate and watch porn because a terrible, terrible woman posted a photo on Facebook to tempt him. So this is none of his fault really, it's these terrible women for being tempting. They're the ones who did this, they're the ones at fault, not him. He's just a poor innocent little baby. While he's doing that though, and masturbating to porn, a mirror falls in the bedroom, and that is apparently a sign from God that he needs to confess all his dirty, dirty sins to Nia. But he doesn't, because despite my fear of God, my fear of shattering Nia proved stronger. Again, how am I meant to empathise with this man at all? He says that when he got exposed for the Ashley Madison cheating on Twitter, the first reply came from the author of the tweet. It read, "Please do not tag Sam and his wife on this. If she wants to know, she could learn to code." It seemed like a glimmer of hope as I read the next reply. "Single best tweet in this entire leak. An overwhelming sense of doom coursed through me as if I'd just run my car off an unfinished bridge. The next reply suggested someone might have fraudulently used my information to sign up. Another glimmer of hope." I'm sorry, but what the hell is, if she wants to know, she should learn to code? That's major victim blaming right there, right? It just, what the hell? Surely if you knew someone was being cheated on essentially so publicly at this point, why would you be like, well, if the wife wanted to know, she should have... No. Sam finally decides that he is going to have to tell Nia something, but he makes the conscious decision to trickle truth. He says, "I resolved to lessen the blow, deciding to reveal the absolute minimum necessary, and once again crafted a lie. Why are men like this?" So we hear about this from Nia's perspective, and he tells her in a restaurant, in public. "Okay, so 2 years ago when I was a nurse," he began, "I made an account on an app called Ashley Madison." "Okay," I said, confused by the seemingly random words. "What's that?" "It's like a dating app, but for married people," he mumbled, looking down at the table. "It's what?" I asked, throwing my head back, nearly giving myself whiplash. "It's a cheating app for married people," he said. Not comprehending what I was hearing, I said, "Are you serious?" "But I never did anything," he added. "I made an account out of curiosity and boredom when I was at work one night and deleted it a few weeks later." Sam emphasised that he'd never had an affair and that the most he ever did on the site was send a couple of short messages. He told me matter-of-factly that I had nothing to be concerned about except for the fact that the account had just been made public. So like I said, this is not what Sam told us in the last chapter. He said that he'd never messaged anyone on there and that he deleted it the same day out of guilt. But here, suddenly he has messaged people and it was a few weeks. So he is hiding the truth from us and Nia. The book then flashes back to Nia recounting a bunch of moments when Sam just completely ignored her at home and treated her terribly, and how she often thought about things like, "As I tried to fall asleep while trying to accept my new reality, I silently wept. Sam went to school mostly with women, and I couldn't help but feel he was giving them his better side. Sam may have been back to the house, but Daddy wasn't exactly home. I decided to trust that Sam was being careful not to give away what was rightfully mine and our daughters, but did my best to put on the front of an understanding wife. I eventually adapted to our new way of life. I didn't realise, however, that this was merely the first domino of many to fall, each one faster than the last. As time passed, I continually had to lower my expectations at Sam's request, causing me many nights of disappointment and tears while I watched our marriage fail." So the cheating really was the least of his issues. He sounds terrible. What we learn from this whole kind of middle section of the book is that even before he got caught out for cheating, even before he signed up for Madison, he was spending so much time away from the home. He was ignoring Nia when he was at home. He was speaking to her horribly. He was ignoring her and the kids. It was just, not very nice. And we learned that this entire time, basically since they first got married, he had been cheating on her with various people to varying degrees. So he's awful. After offering several more apologies and reassuring words, Sam dropped his head on the table and insisted again that our biggest worry should be the potential public exposure. He was adamant that once the news started spreading, our channel would not survive, and his chances of finding work again would be impossible due to his damaged reputation. So you've just told your wife that you have been repeatedly cheating on her, and this is all you can focus on. Oh no, we might not be famous anymore. Nia should have dumped him there and then, and I stand by that completely. For a moment I felt like the hackers were fighting in my corner, because they were. His panic seemed so over the top that even though I had more of a right to be upset than he did, I started to feel sorry for him, and even found myself trying to help him. I hate him. "Yeah," Sam began. "I'm reporting anyone who tweets about it, but I used my real information when I signed up, so it's hard to prove they're lying. He told me he needed to call his brothers for help, covering up the fact that he owned the site to which his email was attached. He frantically typed on his phone, stood up, and left the restaurant." So he's worried, saying like it's hard to prove they're lying. That's because they're not lying. They're telling the truth. You can't be like, "Oh, it's so sad that I can't prove that this truth they're saying is a lie." Why is he like this? I also don't get why he would write this stuff in a book and put this out into the world. Like, surely he knew how bad this would make him look, didn't he? You can't be that stupid. In Sam's chapter, he finally comes to nearly seeing sense when he says, "I couldn't shake the thought that because of my selfish actions, Nia, completely innocent, was left feeling just as vulnerable and ashamed as I was, if not more so." Well, yeah, exactly that. And then he tries to guilt trip the reader into feeling sorry for him with lines like, "A disturbing experience from 5 years prior made its way to the surface of my thoughts in vivid detail, tormenting me even further and reminding me of the selfishness and recklessness I was shockingly capable of. Everyone would be better off right now if I hadn't survived that night," I thought. And it turns out that night he's talking about is involved Sam leaving his wife and child at home so he could go out drinking with his friends who indulged in drink driving. Idiots. Basically, he's like, "Poor me. Oh no, everything is so sad. I shouldn't have survived that night. Boo-hoo, feel sorry for me." Because he chose to go to strip clubs, get drunk, get in a car with a drunk driver, and they got in a really serious accident. Again, how can I extend any empathy towards that? He made those bad choices, and he continues to make bad choices that hurt other people. And especially when it comes to drink driving, I don't have any sympathy for that. It's one of my biggest hates in life. It's selfish, it's pathetic, and there is absolutely no excuse for it. I don't care. You're not just endangering your own life, but the lives of so many innocent people on the road with you. It is, in my mind, unforgivable. And when I said that before, I've had people in the comments be like, "Yeah, but you just don't get it, because in America, public transport isn't as good, and not everyone can afford a taxi." And I'm like, fine, don't drink then. Simple as that. There is no excuse. You either drink and plan ahead, or you don't drink. Or if you haven't planned ahead and you drink, then you stay where you are until you sober up. There are plenty of options available Drink driving shouldn't be one of them. Driving under the influence of anything that impairs your reactions, your judgment, it shouldn't be an option. And I will not accept any excuses for it. No, absolutely not. You don't have to do this, I told myself as I started the car. Already weighed down by guilt from my previous deceptions, I felt too defeated to resist my natural inclinations towards more selfish pleasure-seeking. It's too late to put up a fight now. I shifted the gear into drive, and drifted away from home and whatever wisdom I had left. 6 hours later, I found myself cramped behind the passenger seat of Mitch's grey Toyota Tundra. Jimmy, our designated driver, had indulged in more alcohol than he let on. It was 3 a.m. and we were headed home after a night of excess. I just wasted Nia's and my hard-earned money on alcohol and lap dances, and was determined to protect her from ever knowing. That's not protecting, that's just hiding. The only person you're protecting there is yourself. To cover up, I deviously looked up synopses and plot spoilers for the movie I'd lied to Nia about seeing that night, committing them to memory in case she asked about it when I returned home the following day. So he is scummy through and through. Not only is he deceiving her, but he's planning ahead to deceive her as much as possible. And like I say, of course they nearly crashed because anyone who drinks and drives is an idiot. Anyone who gets in a car with someone who is drunk and driving drunk, words, is an idiot. Sorry, I should say who knowingly gets in the car with a driver who's drunk. Some people don't know, we can't blame them. But he then ends the chapter by admitting that he'd been trying to cheat on his wife for a really, really long time. He said, I was grateful to have been able to tell Nia the truth that I hadn't met up with anyone through Ashley Madison, but this was not due to any noble decision on my part. Had the chance to meet someone arisen, I would have taken it. Signing up for Ashley Madison was just a small part of the destructive cycle I was caught up in at the start of our marriage. Its only true significance lay in that it was my final attempt, after numerous other failed ones, to find something beyond disappointment and shame in the arms of a woman who wasn't my wife. Again, I have no sympathy for him. What's absolutely wild to me, though, is in Nia's chapter, she literally says, since the day we married, I'd always been aware that such marital conflicts would eventually emerge. So she expected this when she married him. She thought that one day she would have to deal with him cheating on her. Like, that's just normal. That's just part of marriage. This poor woman. This poor woman. But she says that, like, she didn't really react overly badly to this Ashley Madison thing because my attitude towards Sam was genuine. I wanted to believe the dust would settle quickly, and I wanted to be there to reassure him of that. If things were to go south, I was ready to publicly defend Sam's character, our relationship, and our faith if necessary. Regardless of what was going to happen, I wanted him to bounce back as soon as possible so we could get back to living our fun YouTube life together. And this is where I'm so conflicted between, do I feel sorry for her as a victim of all this, or is she, in some ways, what's the word? I don't want to say responsible. I feel like even complicit is maybe too harsh, but she clearly didn't do anything to call him out for his bad behaviour. She just kept letting him get away with it. I don't know. I find myself frustrated by her at so many points in this book. They're both shocked when ignoring the situation doesn't make it go away. Wild, crazy, can you believe it? So they decide to record a video together for YouTube. It's like a video statement. And they're just like in a random hotel and they just pull out a camera and they're like, we're gonna talk. I figured instead of reading this bit in the book, because they just rehash a bunch of what they said in the video, I'd just show you some clips from that video, which has since been deleted from their YouTube channel.
Hey guys, as you may have seen, my name has been associated with an Ashley Madison account. Website made for spouses who want to have an affair. I'm here to clarify some of this with you guys because I owe it to you. I did make the account. I made the account 2 years ago. This is an issue that is in our past. This was before I got onto YouTube. I brought this to my church at the time when I first started the church that I'm at now. This has been brought to my discipleship partner. This was brought to my wife's attention. She has forgiven me for this mistake that I made in opening the account. I've sought forgiveness to God and He's forgiven me. So I've been completely cleansed of this sin. And also I need to be clear that I've never met with a single person face to face through that website, and that I never had an affair with anybody ever while I've been married with Nia. The account was open out of pure fleshly desires and just sinful curiosity. And I guess what some people don't understand is that we're all broken, even Christians. We come to God as broken people. And because this is in our past and this has already been completely resolved within our family and within my church, we won't be saying any more of this matter. I won't be talking to any media outlets. The only place you'll hear of this out of our mouth is here on this video, the only time. This is what the atonement's all about: forgiveness and second chances.
And I just want to add too, guys, I have forgiven Sam and I stand behind him. This is in our past, and it's unfortunate that it's being dug up right now, but our marriage is worth fighting for, and it always will be. And I just want to encourage you guys who are dealing with any kind of situation like this within your marriage to just fight for what you have. Marriage is the real deal, and it's been sealed, and it's worth fighting for. It always will be.
All right, and thank you guys so much for your support, the ones standing by us.
In the book, Sam writes, "Receiving Nia's support and encouragement as I spewed out lies to our loyal viewers, making her complicit in my deceit, added to the mountain of shame I already bore. Had Nia been aware of the full extent of my betrayals, I would have been facing that camera alone." And this just makes me angry. I don't know how many more times I can say it. I'm just angry at Sam. While all this was going on and Sam is frustrated for having been caught out in all this lies and deception and betrayal, he decides to take his anger out on strangers violently. Once again leading me to ask, how am I supposed to show this man any kindness or benefit of the doubt or sympathy? He's horrible. Despite the surge of online articles, we remained actively involved in the conference after publishing the video, at one point even participating in an onstage interview. All day I tried to suppress the growing tension within me, but when I encountered two individuals who had publicly disagreed with my miscarriage tweet several days earlier, all the disappointment I'd bottled up seemed to surface at once. They became the target of my pent-up anger. I was soon ejected from the conference for threatening violence after confronting the two individuals and demanding an explanation from them. While I never physically assaulted anyone, People.com released an article 2 days later titled, "Sam Raider admits he got physical with another vlogger before being thrown out of the convention." I'd given the media more fodder to further damage my reputation as a man of God. Or you'd done more to damage your reputation by being a violent thug. Have you thought of that? I have been very upset when people say things about me online that aren't true. But one, the things they were saying were true. And two, I've never taken that upset and responded in violence. That's not a healthy or normal response. It's just not. Part 4, Parted Waters, The Full Confession, which still isn't the full confession. Thankfully, Sam's brother seems like a semi-decent guy at times. "I need to pull over," I said. "I feel car sick." Nia had just briefly discussed a text message sent to our family group chat by my twin brother, who knew more about the double life I once lived than anyone else. "Why are you still lying, bro?" he wrote. Michael was responding to the false claims I'd made in the Forgiven video, possibly to the fact I wasn't giving Nia the full picture of my betrayals. I wasn't exactly sure what he was referring to, but when Nia asked, "What is he talking about?" I claimed that I had no idea. I felt like I was deceiving Nia once again. Maybe because you were deceiving her. Again. The conviction of still lying to my wife with the same soul that loved Jesus created a painful conflict within me. I never intended to be weaving my web of lies after so many years since my last extramarital offence. I felt nauseous and claustrophobic. Good. He deserves to feel that way. "I'm so sorry you're going through this," Matthew said. "My heart is really hurting for Nia right now." He paused. "There's just no way around it. You have to tell her." He agreed that confessing to Nia would probably break her, but encouraged me to put the unknowns in God's hands. I agree with him. Not the God bit, but the rest of it. Poor Nia, meanwhile, has been busy suppressing her emotions, like Sam suppresses the truth. She was seizing a quiet moment to gather my thoughts before he returned to the car. I was eager to move past my frustrations with him for getting us kicked out of Vlogaffair, so I'd been preparing my heart to greet him with cheerfulness, hoping it would help both of us reset and enjoy the rest of our evening together. Sorry, but this is the response of a woman who's been abused. I would be exactly like this with Johnny when I was like in the worst of it with him. He would do something horrible, like hurt me or break my stuff or have cheated on me or just been nasty to me, and I'd be walking on eggshells around him trying to not set him off again so he'd get angry again. And I would have to plaster on this fake smile of like, oh hi, are you okay? Hey, is everything good? And be all cheery and happy and based on this fake cheerfulness to try not to set him off again so he wouldn't hurt me again, or he wouldn't get angry at me again, or he wouldn't drive dangerously again with me in the car, something like that. It's just, I feel so sorry for her. She says, since Sam was experiencing a level of anxiety that was the most intense I'd ever seen, I decided it was time to practice those hopes and set aside my hurt and disappointments for the time being. This poor woman. He doesn't deserve this. He's the one who has repeatedly betrayed you. Screw making him feel better for being, oh, he's sad about being a douchebag. Focus on yourself. You're allowed to be hurt at this time. You're allowed to take time for yourself to feel that hurt and to heal from it. Sam then gives us another sob story about how having a real job, a regular job, having to be a nurse was just so stressful and difficult that that's what drove him to cheat. Sorry, but I think there's millions of amazing nurses out there who are also a little bit stressed at work who don't cheat on their partners. It's not an excuse. He says that to prove that this is what caused it, once he had a fun job like YouTube, he stopped cheating on his wife. So it wasn't his fault, it was the job's fault. Somehow this wasn't his fault at all. It's the big bad world's fault for making him work a hard job and help people for a living. Oh, and he needs to continue doing YouTube now, and he deserves this fame and fortune and success because this is what stopped him cheating on his wife, so he needs to keep doing it, right? It's ridiculous. I do thoroughly understand that working a job that you hate or that is really stressful will affect your mental health. I understand that. I've been there, and especially as like an autistic woman, I know that working in some particular environments or being around other people can be really, really emotionally draining. It can really affect your mental health. It can make you so miserable. I've been in that situation myself. But even when I've been at my lowest points, that hasn't made me go and cheat on my partner. And that hasn't been an excuse to go and betray or hurt the people I'm supposed to love the most, Sam then makes more confessions to Nia, but still doesn't confess everything. He strangely decides he's going to confess all of this stuff while he's driving, which seems incredibly dangerous to me. And it also leaves her with no way of escaping while he's talking, which is a little scary in my mind. It's kind of like he's got her trapped, and now she has to listen to all these horrible things he's done and not be able to go anywhere or leave on her, when she wants to, on her own schedule. Does that make sense? These confessions include, but are not limited to, I went to a massage parlour 4 times. I painfully began. What the heck is coming out of your mouth? What are massage parlours? Nia asked, throwing her hands up in confusion. I'm gonna doubt she didn't know that, but okay. Well, I said, it's a massage parlour that offers prostitution. I had sex with one of them. While I was a nurse, I replied, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. Is this what dying to yourself is? I wondered, or is this murder? Shut up. I continued cutting through my snare at the same time stabbing my wife. I also went to strip clubs a few times with Mitch. Nia was in full tilt shock, her eyes staring right through me as I continued to speak. All of this was so long ago, cutie, I explained. It's not who I am anymore. This is literally infuriating to read. There's more, I said. Oh my gosh, Nia said. I met up with Beth, your old co-worker, on and off for a few months, I stammered. The most we ever did was kiss and hold hands. I don't know how she didn't just literally throw him out of the car right here. She has more self-control than me. In telling Nia all this, he says, I wanted to hug her feet. I was not only causing her immense pain, but also making her feel fooled. Well, yeah. What she wouldn't understand for many months was that she hadn't been the fool at all. Rather, I'd been a skilled liar who'd used her best traits against her. Specifically, her trusting and understanding nature. That's not something to brag about. I'd been living in survival mode in my marriage for the past several years, doing whatever it took to avoid this exact catastrophic moment from occurring. At times, even I was surprised by how creative my deceptions could be. What else? Nia muttered, a grimace on her face, as if she were preparing to take another stab. I also hung out with Tracy, I said. What the heck? Nia screamed. Tracy too? We kissed one time and held hands once, I think. Did I really do these things? My main question at this point is, how did this absolute mid-man, who is clearly manipulative and scummy and not very nice and fame-obsessed with no other personality traits, find so many women interested in him? Where did he find all these women to cheat with? And are they okay? With each truth unveiled, a rope that bound me fell away, bringing my freedom closer into sight. But as these ropes saturated with my sins fell away, they weren't landing on the ground. The snare that I created, once my prison, was now ensnaring Nia. Nah, mate, she was already trapped by you and your lies and betrayal and cheating. She just didn't know it yet, and you didn't bother to actually think about it because you're so damn selfish. In the next chapter, Nia starts to reflect on how this all made her feel, and it's pretty much as you'd expect. Hurt, betrayed, sad, confused, and somehow Sam keeps coming out with more things that he's done, more confessions, but each time he's like, oh, it barely counts. I didn't think it was worth mentioning before. And he's just making excuses. As far as the big things go, that's it, Sam claimed. I did flirt with your co-worker Jane a few times, but she never reciprocated. He made the confession as if it was the least of them, but it immediately sent a whole different kind of electrifying jolt through my body. What? I screamed. Anger and shock stung me all over. The complete lack of regard for his family, his Christian morals, and now my closest friends pierced me in my deepest parts. Exactly, it's not the cheater's decision to decide whether something was a big deal or not. You let the person you betrayed decide what matters and what doesn't, I think for a lot of people, having your partner even attempt to flirt with someone that you both know and that is close to you might actually be more harmful than, say, cheating with a stranger. For some people, what makes it more serious might be the level of physical intimacy, or for some people it might be down to who it is, but it's down to the individual who's been betrayed to decide what is more or less serious, what hurts them the most, not the person doing the betraying. They can't be like, oh, it wasn't a real betrayal. You can't be mad about that. They just can't. Get me out of this car, I demanded. Whoa, cutie, Sam replied, stunned by my reaction to this one. Nothing happened. I am already sick of them calling each other cutie so much, but it's worse in these scenes where he's literally doing it to be like, why are you overreacting? All I did was cheat. I hate it. I hate him. Fun fact for you though, there are actually 32 cuties in this book, which is one every 7.5 pages, and that is far too many. Nia also starts to remember at this point about things that Sam hasn't told her in the confessions, but that now she thinks back, she's like, oh, that was a bit dodgy. Did something happen then? For example, as I scanned my brain for memories of interactions with the women Sam named, a moment came back to me like a shove to my chest. One of my friends had tried to warn me. Sam played with my hair in a flirty way on the drive to dinner yesterday, my friend Emma told me. I just thought you should know. The idea of Sam hitting on, let alone touching, a friend of mine inappropriately was preposterous to me. I immediately assumed she was lying, or at the very least exaggerating. I didn't talk to her for several weeks because of it. Feeling the urge to slap Sam building up inside me, I got out of the car before I could give in. So obviously I don't condone violence in any way, but I thoroughly understand her feelings here, and it's nice to see that unlike Sam, she can take those angry feelings and actually control those urges and not attack people. See, it is possible, Sam. You have no excuse. Nia ends the chapter by deciding that she is going to divorce him, and I really wish she'd stuck to that decision and she'd actually done it, and the book ended there on a happy note. They go their separate ways. She has a wonderful life without him. Wouldn't that be nice? But no. Nia says several times throughout this book, like maybe 3 times, that she is ready to, that she's considering divorcing Sam. But I always get the feeling that she's not quite serious about it. She's not really actively considering it, because we never hear her thinking about the reality of what that would be like. Would she move out? Would he move out? Would she have any support from her family or friends? How would she consider splitting custody for the kids? How would finances work if they got divorced? Would she carry on with the YouTube channel if they got divorced? Or would she go and find another job? How does she feel her life would change for the better or worse if they got divorced? I think these are things that people who are considering divorce actually think about. And I kind of wish we'd seen her at least like thinking about these things or considering them, or I don't know, something to make it real. There were so many points when reading this book where I was like, Nia could have left him or perhaps should have left him, and I do wonder what her life would be like now today if she had left at those points. Like, but as it stands, I feel like she never got to figure out who she is as an adult without him. Like, they met in high school and then stayed together for all these years until, how old is she now? She's 36 now, and she has never been an independent adult without him there, arguably holding her back, you know? I do kind of wonder, or at least I did while reading this book, how much of her stayed with him out of familiarity or fear or codependence rather than because she actually loved him and felt this was a good, healthy relationship. If you would like some recommendations for books which focus on healing and moving on after a breakup, especially when that involves cheating, then I would recommend How to Heal a Broken Heart by Rosie Green, on a slightly different note for relationships that were slightly more like abusive than just cheating. Rebecca Humphries' Why Did You Stay is a fantastic book, which I have a whole video on this channel. If you feel yourself stuck too much in relationships and relying on being with a partner, any partner, then I highly recommend Catherine Gray's The Unexpected Joy of Being Single. I wish Nia had read this or would read this. I also feel like she'd benefit from a book like Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. It's a little old now and some bits in it are a little outdated, but for example, there's a whole chapter in there about a woman whose husband has been repeatedly cheating on her since her very first pregnancy, and yet she still won't leave him. She considered it once, but couldn't follow through, very much like Nia. In that book, Robin writes, why would a bright, attractive, energetic, and capable young woman like the woman in her example story need a relationship so fraught with pain and hardship as hers was with her cheating husband? Because for her and other women who have grown up in deeply unhappy homes, where the emotional burdens were too heavy and the responsibilities too great, for these women, what feels good and what feels bad have become confused and entangled, and finally one and the same. Now, I'm not saying this is definitely true for Nia. It's possible it is, but I couldn't possibly know. I don't know her. I'm not any kind of psychologist or therapist or anything. But it is one possible explanation, and it's quite nice that, like, throughout this book she gives hope that, like, just because this might be the reasoning for why this happened, this doesn't mean you're stuck in this negative cycle. There's no reason to resign yourself to being stuck in a miserable marriage with someone you don't and can't trust for the rest of your life. There is a way out, and you should mostly be looking for that way out. You do deserve someone better, and you can find someone better. I think one of the things that annoys me most about this book is that it is entirely focused on Sam, and there's not enough about Nia and her journey, and I think she needs something. She needs some help or support or therapy or something. So, spoilers for the end of this book. By the end of the book, we hear about Sam joining this support group for men who cheat on and betray their wives, and Nia kind of joins this support group, or, well, it's not really a support group, it's just a group of those men's partners, right? But other than that, there's no mention of Nia actually having, like, doing anything for herself. It would have been nice to see her going to, like, an actual therapist, learning to build up her self-esteem again, learning how to set healthy boundaries, learning to love herself again, understanding that she actually deserves respect, real respect from her partner. But we get none of that because, like I said, this book isn't about her. It's called Sam and Nia. It's meant to be about their journey. It's written by both of them. But it's about Sam and his story and his experience and how everything affected him. He's the only one who seems to actually matter in this book. Nia is only ever really included to show Sam finally feeling a bit of guilt when he makes her cry by his own actions. But her feelings as, like, an independent entity don't seem to actually matter. All we hear is, like, her reacting to Sam, her responding to Sam. Sam feels like this, so she feels like this. Sam did this, so she feels like this. It's never about just her feelings on their own. She's mentioned to facilitate Sam's story, but it's not her story. And that's one of the things I find most frustrating about this book. Going back to where we were in the book, and past Sam has just admitted to cheating and having doubts about being with Nia before she was ever even pregnant in the first place, like in the first few months of marriage, right? And so my big question for him is, you've been cheating on her throughout the entire adult part of your relationship, and it turns out the teenage part too. So why the hell would you decide to marry and have kids with someone you were clearly so miserable with and treating so badly? What is wrong with you? Following these confessions, Sam decides the most important thing to do while his wife is heartbroken and betrayed, and what he really, really, really needs to do right now is vlog. Because of course he does. So he gets out his camera and announces a hiatus from filming, thankfully. But still, you're going through a crisis. There are more important things in your life than vlogging. And it's not like they needed the money. They weren't living paycheck to paycheck. They were raking it in at this point. They didn't need to... Oh, frustrating. So frustrating. Sam also tells us that the reason he's finally a better man is because he stopped being like just a Christian and finally found God for realsies. And apparently that's fixed him. And he was finally able to just plaster over all that cheating and lying he did for years because God. In Nia's next chapter, she reveals that her past best friend Jane literally moved away because she couldn't deal with Sam hitting on her constantly. So not only was he cheating on Nia constantly, but he was also part of isolating her from her friends by like making her friends so uncomfortable they moved away and stopped talking to her. Or in the case of the other one, Emily, they would tell her what happened and she wouldn't believe them, so they would stop talking. Sam's behaviour gets worse and worse the more you read. And I think the saddest part is that Nia keeps blaming herself for Sam's behaviour when it is absolutely not her fault. She says things like, it had me asking once again why I didn't just trust myself, because she kept having these gut feelings that something was wrong, but ignoring them because that's what a good Christian wife is supposed to do. And while we as outsiders can see that this was absolutely not her fault, it's impossible to think that for yourself in the moment and not blame yourself. So she was blaming herself, and it's really, really sad to see. She recounts a moment from their second year of marriage where, before Sam returned home from a day at nursing school, I enlarged a Facebook comment feed on his computer screen. In it, he'd made 2 comments to a female nursing classmate that I found inappropriate. One complimenting her smarts, and the other expressing that he missed her over their break. Okay, Sam said as he sat down at his computer, already claiming his innocence. What's your point? We agreed that we wouldn't add the opposite sex on Facebook, I replied. This is exactly why. Why? So I can't communicate with my classmates? Sam sarcastically said. No, so we can protect our marriage, I exclaimed. First off, I don't find this girl attractive at all, he said. Secondly, I'm just being friendly. That's totally beside the point, I shouted. We went back and forth arguing whether or not what he said to the girl was flirting. Sam argued that he didn't want to isolate himself from his classmates. I tried to explain that complimenting other women felt like a betrayal. All of this is just red flags galore to me, because I've been in similar-ish situations. On the one hand, in a healthy relationship, you should absolutely be able to talk to friends and hang out and speak to them, no problems, of course. But in my experience, if you're worried about stuff like this and have to set those don't add such and such people on social media type boundaries, then it's usually indicative of a larger problem. A lot of people will jump on this and be like, see, the person asking, they're super insecure, they have all these problems, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what I was told for a really long time. And I was always like, well, I'm the problem. I just need to allow more and more and more and more and more. And that's how I ended up repeatedly being cheated on and being hurt and being lied to and being betrayed over and over. I was told I was crazy, insecure, immature, and every time it led to my boundaries being overstepped and pushed and promises being broken, and like I say, being cheated on repeatedly. And because I was constantly told, not only by the people I was in a relationship with, but by like the wider world, that having these worries were because I was crazy and insecure and this was a me problem, that was why I didn't leave sooner. I ended up getting more and more hurt each time, and it just added to all this emotional damage that I had going on. One of the worst points was when the person I shouldn't worry about, that I was worried about, that I was crazy to worry about, that I was being immature about, he cheated on me with her and ended up giving me chlamydia that she'd given him. And yet I was still the crazy immature one In cases like that, not listening to my instincts and having those boundaries of mine pushed literally put my health in danger. And what I've learned over the years is those kinds of insecurities don't come from nowhere, but they're generally a response to a partner being untrustworthy in one way or another. And so my best advice for people, and this might be kind of controversial, this might be controversial, but my best advice is if you're feeling this way and you're insecure about like certain things, go speak to someone completely impartial, like a therapist, and unpick where those feelings are coming from. Are they from yourself because you've had bad experiences in the past and you're projecting those experiences onto another person? Or are you feeling this way because of something this person you're insecure about has done to make you feel that way? Does that make sense? Because there is a massive difference. If this person who is your partner or potential partner is acting in a way that makes you feel like crap, this feels like they're crossing a boundary, this feels like they're doing something inappropriate, that's not necessarily a you problem. That's not necessarily a problem with you being insecure or crazy or immature or whatever other words people like to use. And this is kind of controversial, but one of the things I found is that if you find these worries and insecurities are coming from their behaviour, then oftentimes setting boundaries isn't actually gonna, like, for example, don't add this group of people on Facebook. Like, they're not actually going to help anything because your partner's still doing actions in the first place that are inappropriate and that are making you feel this worry. Chances are you just need to move on and find someone better because they're not good enough for you. With, like, the right partner, a healthy partner, a partner who respects you and isn't going to hurt you or cheat on you, you generally won't have those worries and insecurities. And I don't know if I'm speaking properly, if I'm making any sense. I think the point is, if, for example, you're like, oh, you can't speak to this group of people because you might cheat on me, the problem is that he might cheat on you, and that means he's not good enough for you. Because you're thinking you need to control the situation so he doesn't cheat. You put up boundaries so he doesn't cheat. You don't give him the opportunity to cheat. But he still wants to cheat. If he's a good man who doesn't want to cheat on you, then you won't have those worries in the first place because you'll actually be able to trust him and you won't need all these boundaries because he just won't do it anyway. You know, he won't cheat not because he doesn't have access to them. He won't cheat because he just doesn't want to. Anyway, I'm rambling. Blah, 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 blah. While all this is going on, turns out, oh my god, there's something else he hasn't told her about. See, he's trickle-truthing. So he opens this revelation by trying to claim that he was cheating as a form of self-harm, and he actually has the cheek to compare himself to a literal victim of suicide. It is so damn disrespectful. I know suicide and self-harm is hard for some people to hear about, so you might want to skip forward 30 seconds or so. But he says, about a literal suicide victim, as I watched her slowly doze off, her cut wrists tied down to the bed frame, that doesn't seem healthy, I hoped she would one day understand that I had forcefully restrained her, not only for her own good, but for the people who loved her, and would be destroyed had she successfully ended her life. However, I couldn't help but relate to her. As of late, my decisions had seemed nothing less than a form of self-mutilation. I never reached the point of suicidal ideation as she had, but my vice was just another way to feel something, other than the depression and discontent that engulfed me. The choice I was minutes away from making, however, would jeopardize the world as I knew it, and might as well have been called suicide. So he's comparing him choosing to cheat with a woman choosing to hurt herself. No, because self-harm doesn't harm anyone else. That's just about you. It's a very personal thing. You deciding to cheat on your wife, I don't care what that does to you, that hurts your innocent wife and child, and that's not okay. Anyway, he still decides to cheat. Desperate to escape my sympathy-sucking environment, You're working as a nurse, for God's sake. I opened Craigslist on my phone, and regretfully, it wasn't for a session of retail therapy. I navigated to the men searching for women section. As I scrolled through a list of mostly advertisements for pornographic sites, a particular listing midway down the page caught my attention. I tapped on it. The description challenged men to prove they were man enough, rounded off with the cheeky, good luck cowboys. Intrigued, I crafted a short reply, offering up my first name and best qualities. He is an insecure little boy, isn't he? So he sends them a photo of himself, and it turns out the person who posted this ad that he's talking to and flirting with is someone both him and Nia actually know. The email that blinked back sent the worst kind of chills down my spine. "Oh my god, I know who you are," it read. "I feel so bad for Nia." "Oh my gosh," I explained out loud, nearly falling backwards in my chair. My words echoed through the quiet ER. Serves him right. I wish he'd been caught then. With trembling fingers, I composed my next email. "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I was just messing around out of boredom at work. I have no intention on ever cheating on Nia." Attempting to redirect the conversation, I added, "How do you know her?" She replied, "You both know me. I went to school with y'all." Terrible excuse. Turns out it's someone called Samantha, who they still know to this day. I took some comfort in recalling that even though she was mostly overlooked in high school, I had always treated her kindly and was intentional about making her feel seen. Based on what I thought I knew about her, it seemed my secret would be safe with her. What is wrong with this man? "It's okay, I didn't bully her, so I'm sure she won't tell my wife about my infidelity." Ugh. Stop it. But because they didn't actually meet up and nothing physical happened, he decided not to tell Nia about this either, until much later. This man. Part 5 is Mirages and Mana, the aftermath of confession. So Sam and Nia finally get home after this vlogging convention thing, and their life is just falling apart, but it's also their kid's first day of school. So Sam decides to do the appropriate thing and vlog it all and upload it to YouTube like nothing has happened. But it's okay, because he edits out the bit of Nia literally crying. I hate this man. They started doing church marriage counselling, and during which Sam is still awful. "I don't think it's helping anyone to give any more details," I said, "and having to keep starting back at square one." "Awesome, you're still keeping secrets," Nia said sarcastically, shaking her head as anger painted her face. "I just feel like we're bringing things back to life that are long gone and dead now," I argued. Bo looked into my eyes. Nia deserves to know exactly what it is she's going to need to forgive and move past before she begins to do so, Sam. And as annoying as Bo was in his little introduction, I actually agree with him here. Good on him for saying that. Nia responds to the terrible counselling session by throwing out a bunch of his clothes and taking off her wedding ring. Again, I wish the book ended here, but sadly there's still 35% of it to go. There's just more and more chapters of Sam passing the blame and being like, "Me and Matthew spoke, and this comes back to how Dad committed adultery, so of course I learned to commit adultery from Dad. It's all his fault, not mine." So far we have Sam saying he committed adultery because his dad did. He committed adultery because he was bored at work and sad at work and he didn't like his job. He committed adultery because he wasn't famous yet. And he committed adultery because he was a Christian, but not like a proper Christian. He takes no personal responsibility whatsoever. How about just you cheated because you wanted to, because you chose to do that? Take some responsibility. He also tells Nia, "I'll do whatever it takes. You already have all my passwords and full access to all my social media accounts. I'll sync our Apple accounts so you can check my location anytime." My love for her was finally an open door. He still can't let this YouTube frozen thing go, and I want to vomit. Not appropriate now, mate. Not the time. He also reassures her that he won't cheat on her, not because he doesn't want to anymore, but because he doesn't want to cheat on God. "I love you so much," I added. "Please remember too, my relationship with God is deeper and more real than ever. First and foremost, I don't want to cheat on him." He then tells her that, well, no, actually, wait, he might cheat on her again. He doesn't know. He could do. Ugh. So he's going to do things to physically stop himself having any opportunity to cheat. Like, he won't take his phone to the bathroom. And I can't help but think, again, if you have to do all this stuff and put up these, like, physical barriers that, like, stop you having opportunities to cheat, because if you have the opportunity, you'll do it, then there's still betrayal there. You still want to cheat. You still could cheat. Like, that's not a healthy or fulfilling relationship for anyone involved, is it? She needs to leave him. So after 4 marriage counselling sessions with the church, Nia finally starts to think that things are getting a little better. And she has sex with Sam again, and she thinks this is like a turning point, only for him to then be like, "Wait, no, I have more things to confess to you." Again, how can I extend a man like this any sympathy or empathy? I just can't. He took a deep breath and dropped his forehead into his hand, answering my question without saying a word. He had another confession. "Just tell me," I said. Behind his hands he muffled, "I met up with Amy once." He removed his hands and looked up at me. "It was one time we met in a theatre parking lot for about 15 minutes and just talked outside of our cars and caught up." I was instantly fuming. Sam and I had long agreed that this person was completely off limits due to the nature of his past friendship with her in high school. I'd believed Amy was completely behind us and long forgotten. I couldn't have walked into more disappointing news. "Are you freaking kidding me?" I quietly said, my face getting hot. I was no longer concerned about treating him respectably. I called him a few choice words. "Good. Call him more. And please leave him. There's no redeeming this man. Leave him." In the next chapter, Sam gives us another excuse for his cheating. So we have not religious enough, didn't like his job, and his dad did it. And now apparently it's because he's just a hopeless romantic who never got proper sex education. And once he watched Moulin Rouge, so of course he was going to cheat. And I wish I was joking, but this is literally what he says. I'll not tell you the whole thing because it's several pages long, but a choice paragraph is, "Unwilling, perhaps incapable of adapting to reality, I fantasized once again about recreating scenes from my favourite movies, or perhaps even the best moments of Nia's and my past relationship. Instead of provocatively seeking counsel, I defaulted to what I knew best, chasing women. However, as a married Christian man who still loved the Lord deep down and treasured his wife and family, it didn't go as expected." And of course, the women he cheated with are to blame too, because they were just so broken, so it's their fault. The initial chase might have been exciting, but once over, I was met with women as selfish as I was, with just as much baggage, if not more. There were reasons these women were giving a married man their attention. They had issues like me and unrealistic fantasies of their own. Both parties were only interested in taking what they could from each other and making for some profoundly unsatisfying encounters. So the reasons he cheated: hated his job, his dad did it, he's a romantic, it's the women's fault, he wasn't famous yet, he likes Moulin Rouge, he didn't get proper sex education, it's the women's fault, I think I might have already said that, he wasn't religious enough. Again, where is the personal responsibility? Nia, meanwhile, is looking to the Bible for advice about whether or not she should divorce him, and she eventually comes to the conclusion no, for reasons including, suppose I divorce Sam and eventually remarry, I wondered. Even if I was justified in doing so in God's eyes, will I be putting Sam in a position to commit adultery again if he remarries? I further wondered if the verse implied that anyone who marries a divorced person is also committing adultery. Will I be perpetuating sin if I choose to divorce Sam? The only thing that seemed somewhat clear to me was that if Sam and I both married someone else after divorcing, which was likely, at least one person involved would be in a marriage that dishonoured God. At least that's how I understood it. I opened my Bible and a few familiar verses on divorce. 1 Corinthians says a wife must not separate from her husband. I couldn't find any exceptions given there. And then I read in Malachi, I hate divorce, says the Lord. Wow, definitely no exceptions there either. So we have this situation where a woman who's clearly a victim and clearly being hurt repeatedly by this man is essentially being shamed or guilted into staying in a really unhealthy marriage, and it's just sad to see. She also says that God sent her a message that her and Sam would be offering marriage ministry to other couples one day. So she's considering divorce. He keeps lying and cheating repeatedly, and you want to stay together so you can teach other people how to have a good marriage. Make it make sense. At this point in the book, I stopped feeling sorry for her for a little while and started wondering if she's just as delusional and self-obsessed as Sam is. I'm still not sure what to think. Meanwhile, their marriage sounds absolutely miserable. This is from Sam's perspective, and this is apparently while they were healing their relationship. This is progress. This is a good thing in his eyes. During this time of repair, rebuilding, and healing, my sole purpose was to create and maintain a protective bubble around Nia and our marriage, even if it came at the cost of other valuable relationships in our lives, which it unfortunately would. Whereas I used to walk on eggshells to keep my secrets hidden, I was now just as cautious in ensuring Nia knew I had nothing left to hide, being extra careful to avoid doing anything that could be misconstrued as a sign of unfaithfulness or keeping a secret. Simple acts like spraying on cologne, keeping my phone in my pocket, or being alone in a room required careful consideration. Whenever I considered styling my hair or brushing my teeth outside the usual times, I'd assume Nia feared I was getting ready to meet another woman, so instead I'd throw on a hat or accept having slimy teeth. As another measure of my transparency to Nia, I went so far as to leave the bathroom door open while using it. Sorry, but this is no way to live. He decides to try and repair things by... So remember, he's cheated on her repeatedly, many times, and his way to make it up to her is to buy her a new washing machine and dryer. He spends pages on this too. You can't make this up, can you? Oh, God's sake. He then has a whole chapter about he was tempted by a harlot of a woman because his car broke down. And a married woman who went to their church was like, oh, are you okay? Do you want to come inside for a cup of tea or like just cool down a bit with the air conditioning? And he was like, no, you harlot, don't tempt me. Maybe not in those words, but that was the sentiment behind it. She was just being friendly and like trying to be a good neighbour, essentially. And he wrote an entire chapter about how she was a horrible whore for trying to tempt him. When she did nothing wrong. She wasn't flirting, she wasn't tempting, she wasn't doing anything. She was like, do you want to come inside where there's air conditioning? And he even says to her at one point, he's like, oh, sorry, I cheated on my wife, so I can't be alone with you. And she's like, I have no intentions like that, mate, don't you worry. And he's like, you harlot! And then he spends several paragraphs insulting her photography skills and calling it lackluster. Where did that come from? It's out of nowhere. It's not necessary, is it? It's just rude. Mate. He goes home and he tells Nia about this entire interaction. And he says, after my nerves settled, I thank God that the moment was over. I called Nia and told her everything that had unfolded. I bet you wanted to go inside with her, didn't you? Nia asked. I didn't even consider it, I said. I was too busy trying to stop talking to this woman. Nia sighed. I haven't even finished processing your old confessions and new ones are already popping up. I guess this is my new life. I gotta go. Nia hung up without saying goodbye. Despite her disappointment, I knew this was a win for us. This life sounds miserable. Nia, please leave him. And I mean, even Nia is miserable. She's also making it sound absolutely terrible. I bombarded Sam with questions, doubting his loyalty and motivation at the snap of a finger. I never knew when I'd erupt in bitterness, but when I did, Sam was the first to know. When I believed his efforts were genuine, I'd get angry that I was getting this new Sam after he cheated on me, telling myself that he didn't deserve the fruit of being the better man he claimed to be. None of this is worth it. I mean, I just don't get it. I do not get any of this at all. Like, it sounds like they were never really happy together, okay? So they met when they were kids in school, and at that time they were constantly breaking up and getting back together and arguing and breaking up and getting back together. Then they went to college, and they broke up for a little while. Sam got jealous because he saw her walking with another man. They got back together, broke up a bit, got back together, broke up a bit, got back together. Then they got married. Then Sam cheated repeatedly for years. Then they got big on YouTube and Sam stopped cheating. But his cheating was exposed not long after he'd stopped, like maybe like a year. And Nia couldn't trust him again for years. And they had years and years of this, like, her questioning him walking on eggshells, and they still apparently have these like really strict boundaries in place, and they're doing all this stuff, and they're constantly living with like, oh, is he cheating? Is he not? Where is the genuine happiness? What are they actually fighting for? Do they even like each other? And when they write about like what they like about each other, Nia's only ever written about like what she liked about the idea of Sam, not whoever he actually was. And Sam is just like, I like that Nia makes me feel good and she's really hot. Is this a relationship really worth making your entire lives miserable for? Nia then goes on to prove why we need better scientific literacy. She says, one stat I read said people are 75% more likely to get divorced if a friend or family member has been divorced, and 147% more likely if multiple friends are divorced. I began to see divorce as a modern-day pestilence spreading like a contagious virus. I started asking myself new questions like, do I really want to increase the chances of one of my close friends or family members getting a divorce? And do I want to help stop the spread of this pestilence in my family lineage or play a part in perpetuating it? Just because a stat shows a correlation, that doesn't mean there's a causal link. You getting a divorce is not going to cause other couples to get a divorce. That's not how the world works. Meanwhile, while Nia is still going back and forth between should I divorce him or should I keep struggling through this miserable existence with him, she finds out she's pregnant, and that means the choice has been made for her. This poor, poor woman. She also says that in the meantime, Sam and I continued our YouTube journey, reaching new highs and being presented with more once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. However, it wasn't long before we started hitting new lows. Depression struck our home once again, but in a new way, leaving us vulnerable to old ways. Which proves that not everything you see online is real. Part 6, Eden reclaimed the final confession. Because apparently there's more. This chapter starts with a flashback to high school, with Sam overstepping boundaries with a girl called Amy, that he had like this past with dating or whatever, a woman that we found out in the last part he later went on to emotionally cheat on Nia with. And Nia is so upset that Sam has been ignoring her for this entire day to flirt with Amy in front of her that she gets into a car crash. So I mentioned earlier there's a lot of car crashes in this book. 3 car crashes. One of them I didn't talk about because I just... time. But there's 3 car crashes in this book, and all of them are related to Sam's cheating in one way or another. His cheating is literally endangering people's lives. It's horrific. Can they not see a pattern here? People shouldn't be getting into car crashes this often, and the fact they're all related to his cheating... Come on. Ugh. And what's worse is that he blames her. He cheated on her, like, emotionally flirting, whatever. But in high school, that's still pretty extreme for cheating for them. He cheated on her. She was rightfully upset. And he turns around and says, I started crying as Sam expressed his frustrations with my careless driving. I can't believe you, cutie. As I tearfully repeated my apologies to him, he continued, your jealousy almost killed us, and now your brand new car is gone. The nerve of this man to blame it on her and her jealousy when it was him and his cheating. See what I mean? Fed up. Absolutely fed up. The next day, Sam and I replayed the events and realised how fortunate we were to still have each other. I forgave Sam for crossing a boundary with Amy, and he forgave me for putting our lives in danger. This is where she should have dumped him the first time. Just imagine, she wouldn't have had to put up with 10, 20, 30 more... Well, not 30 more years, but like 20 more years of being cheated on and being miserable if she'd just left here. She could have had 20 great years instead of whatever this mess was she had with him. While Nia is busy thinking back to this and the many times she was cheated on, Sam is busy thinking about vlogging and how super duper famous and popular he is. Come Back, Sam and Nia was the petition's title, created on change.org. The description read, Sam and Nia have endured so much, and all who sign this petition show sympathy for them. The author had no ideas about the struggles we were actually enduring, especially Nia. Due to my public lies, she and the rest of our audience only knew a snippet of the truth. 1.5 months after setting our camera down and taking a break from YouTube, putting all efforts and resources into our marriage, Nia and I returned to making vlogs again. Our comeback vlog was innocuously titled, Nia Got a Haircut. We resumed our vlogs as if nothing worth mentioning had happened, or was happening, implying to our audience that we'd taken time off to recover from the public backlash regarding our pregnancy and the Ashley Madison ordeal, carefully sidestepping the truth that we actually hadn't been on the brink of divorce. I assumed that regaining our viewers' attention after all the public scandal and accusations would be difficult, if not impossible. It seemed I was wrong, at first glance at least. Our channel exploded, reaching higher numbers than ever. We went on to post some of our most viewed videos to date, several of which outperformed our previous viral hits combined. Our subscriber count soared from 350,000 to 2.5 million over the following 3 years, surpassing the billion view milestone. Can we please stop rewarding crappy people for crappy behaviour? I don't think that's too much to ask. And again, while Nia is busy thinking about divorcing him, Sam can't stop talking about how much money he's making, with things like blah blah blah, a video that now has 63 million views brought in a total of $77,000 from AdSense alone. Throughout this time of chasing numbers, we kept all aspects of our marriage's healing journey behind closed doors. While keeping this private would be expected, our situation was unique. Our channel was supposed to be our ministry. It was an answered prayer about my feelings of being a useless member of God's kingdom. Sam, however, gets sad and wants us to all feel sorry for him because his success doesn't last forever. The huge success we experienced over the first 3 years after our return paled in comparison to the challenging years that followed. At the pinnacle of our YouTube career in 2017, we amassed 330 million views for the year. With each passing year, our viewership plummeted. By 2022, we could only manage to bring in 10 million views for the entire year, a 97% dip. Ha! Only 10 million. That would be a great year for most of us. Live in the real world, please. I saw us making several $100,000 a year for the rest of our lives solely by filming it. My high hopes had turned out to be just that. High hopes. Our views tanked and the brand deals dried up. Yeah, maybe because things change and the YouTube landscape changes and people want different things over time, you know? People maybe now don't care as much about low-level fluff from a serial cheater. Just saying. Sam starts begging God to not send him back to a 9-to-5 and complains that they have too much credit card debt, which is insane to me. He was literally just bragging about how he's making tens of thousands of dollars off one video. They had these hundreds of thousands of dollars they were making a year. They had these ridiculous brand deals where they were making tens of thousands of pounds. Like, they were rich. They were like rich. So why were they not more sensible? Where were their savings? What about investing and planning ahead? Why do you have credit card debt when you're making that much money? I have no sympathy for these people who weren't sensible with the millions they were making and now cry about it. Sam decides that the only way to get viewers back is to admit that he's been lying to everyone for years and talk about all the times he cheated on his wife. Meanwhile, Nia is busy being told by her therapist that it is all her fault he cheated on her, and I cannot deal with this book. When I said I wanted Nia to go to therapy, I meant like a real therapy and not like this Christian therapist who blames her for everything. I still don't understand why they published this book. They said they wanted it to be like an inspiring story of a couple overcoming hardships, but where is the inspiration? Where is anything good? All I'm getting from this is that I'm learning exactly what I would never want in a relationship. It's a great guide of what not to do. It turns out that Nia has PTSD from being lied to and cheated on and betrayed repeatedly, and then has her third baby, and then a few years later they decide to renew their wedding vows, and Sam starts going to the BOLD ministry, Brothers Overcoming Lustful Desires. It's where he meets with several other men wrestling with sexual brokenness, a term that I thoroughly hate. If you've seen any of my videos on Girl Defined. He's then made a leader of one of these groups because he's just so wise and so qualified. Because I guess apparently the more you cheat on the wife, the more qualified you are to lead other men who are sexually broken. Meanwhile, Nia joins BOLD for Women, which is just for the partners of those men in the BOLD group, and is apparently designed to help women dealing with the fallout of broken vows or trust. And I just think it's wild how, at this point in their lives, and right up until today, their whole lives are just based around this infidelity. They chose to start going to a new church, they started going to these groups, they made new friends, they changed their online content that they make money from, and now they've written a book and appeared in a documentary, all because he cheated. Their whole identity and lifestyle is based around the fact that he cheated on me. Even like 20 years after the cheating started, all their life is just based around this fallout from cheating. I couldn't do it. I absolutely couldn't do it. This whole last part of their book is based around what they call like the redemptive part of their story, but I don't see any redemption. I don't see any real growth or healing. I just see two people who still barely trust each other, who I doubt are really happy, trying to pretend they're happy and sorted and healed and healthy when clearly they're not. They're still dealing with this fallout and aftermath of cheating. They're still struggling to be happy together and trust each other. They still have to have all these insane boundaries in place to stop him from doing it again, because he still wants to cheat, but he won't now because she takes his phone. You know, there's no real redemption here. There's no growth. There's no healing. There's nothing aspirational here. Even when filming for the Netflix documentary, which wasn't even that long ago, we're talking like, what, a year ago max? Sam says he is still emotionally cheating on Nia sometimes and betraying her. Has there been unfaithfulness in your marriage since the confessions in Seattle? Claire asks. Sam and I froze. The uncomfortable moment triggered the panicky emotions I get before one of Sam's confessions. As Sam and I looked into each other's wide eyes with uncomfortable grins, unsure of how much the other was willing to share, my mind drifted to calculating how long it had been since his last confession. It had been about a year. Yes, Sam admitted. I've had to confess other slip-ups with her. It's only been a handful of times, Sam began, mostly involving pornography or other women getting in my head, that kind of thing. Sam had remained open and vulnerable with me as he promised he would. For example, several months after this interview, he would tell me he stopped visiting a coffee shop because he felt attracted to the barista there. Over the years, the time between confessions grew progressively wider, and the slip-ups less severe. But my immediate reaction to them seemed to remain the same. Taking a deep breath before speaking was usually enough to reground me. How is this any kind of life? You cannot be happy like this. I refuse to believe it. Nia deserves so much more. If there's anything you need to get off your chest before we continue with this whole documentary thing I said, now's the time to do it. Sam stretched his arms above his head and took a deep breath. Telltale signs he had a confession. My heart pounded. Just tell me, I said. A couple of weeks ago, I sat near a girl at Starbucks and made friendly small talk with her, he said. It was nothing. Okay, and? She was reading a finance book that I've read before, and I just gave her some random investment advice, he added. How long did you talk to her? I asked, starting to get impatient. Maybe 10 minutes on and off, he said. Did you get a number? I asked, half joking. No, of course not. I didn't get her number, but... He paused, shaking his head. He continued. When she walked out, I waved her goodbye, kind of flirtatiously, and she smiled back at me. Disappointment struck. He continued to confess that he'd allowed his mind to fantasize about her, but told me he had quickly taken the thoughts captive, after which he said they went away. He told me he never saw her again. It's so dumb, he added. I'm really sorry. I need a minute, I told him as I got up and left the room. Don't come after me. I went back into our bedroom and told Sam I forgave him. I wouldn't always be so gracious, but thankfully I was in fruit-bearing season, and this storm hadn't been strong enough to blow all my fruit off the tree. The fruits that remained were self-control, quick forgiveness, thankfulness for Sam's honesty, and love for the amazing reminder that my joy was deeply rooted and never without supply. Now, I said playfully, if you ever want to sit next to me again, you better be careful where you sit in public without me next time. Sam hugged me and thanked me for my grace and told me he would be taking us out to dinner that night. She should just divorce him. Having these conversations so regularly is not normal. This is not happiness. This is not healthy for anyone. And this is just where the book ends. I don't think I've read a book by such an unlikable man since I read the stuff by Rosie a while back, a few years ago. But I mean, like, at least crappy men like Rosie don't make excuses for their crappiness like Sam tries to. Sam admits he's doing all this crappy stuff and then passes the blame off to everyone else. It was the women he cheated with, it was his dad, it was God, it was work, it was... stop it. And, yeah, that's about it. Basically, This book just gave me so many big feelings. Frustration, anger, sadness. I feel so sorry for Nia. Like I say, I don't know anything about her other than this book and the few videos I saw as part of researching this video, but I do just feel for her, bless her. This is no way to live, and no person deserves to live like she is currently having to, and like she has had to for the last 20 years. I just really, really feel bad for her, and hope she can finally leave him and find some happiness, you know? But they're my thoughts. This is where I'm going to end this here. Let me know what you thought of this book down in the comments. And yeah, thank you all for your continued support and kindness and everything. I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot. And I will see you again soon. Bye.